Welcome to the program. I'm so glad you're here. I'm in Orlando, Florida, getting ready for the 9/12 summit, which is happening on 9/12, and 9/11 is tomorrow. And I will be there, and we're going to talk a little bit about politics. I think that's what I've promised. I said I was going to talk about, but I don't think I could talk about politics anymore. Last night I almost had an aneurysm before I went to bed. I honestly, if I wouldn't have put my computer down last night, if I wouldn't put the iPad down last night, I don't think I'd be on the radio today, because I was about to use every foul word that I haven't used since the mid-'90s. In response to some of the people online. Gandhi was not anywhere near my hotel room last night, I'll tell you that. I was in Washington yesterday, and you listen to me, and you know, this audience knows what time it is. And I am so done with talking politics and the games that are being played. And I have a hard time, as Stu and Pat and Jeffy will tell you, we talk on the air all the time. Look, how are we going to balance this? How are we going to continue to talk about politics, but also, talk about the things that are really important? Because politics are important. How do we do it? Back and forth. I mean, we really wrestle with it. And then I see these brain-dead media people and these brain-dead politicians up in Washington, D.C., who honestly, the people always lead, and politicians are always behind the people. But in Washington, D.C., I'm telling you, it is 1934. That's how far behind the people are. They are. I get off the stage yesterday, which is something I want to talk to you about. And I get off the stage, and somebody from, I think it was the Daily Mail or the Guardian from England, came right up to me right after my speech. Now, in my speech, I'm not talking about politics at all. I'm telling you, in this speech, this is the moment of choosing, or our way of life. And quite honestly, we as Americans will be wiped clean off this land. The Guardian came up and said, "Hey, I listened to your speech here just a few minutes ago. Can you tell me what happens if Hillary Clinton is elected?" I looked at her, and I was stunned. I don't even think I responded to her at first. I looked at her like, am I in some sort of a fever dream right now? What is this conversation? And I said, "Excuse me?" And she said, what happens if this deal goes through and then Hillary Clinton I said, "Did you listen to anything I just said? I have no idea what is going to happen with Hillary Clinton. We may not make it to Hillary Clinton. Are you that out of touch? How can we be facing evil?" I mean, imagine, now in retrospect, and this is what was happening in the 1930s, so I have to keep this in perspective. But imagine you're standing up on stage and you're like, "Hey, by the way, they're exterminating Jews right now. They've got these death camps, and they're putting them in showers, and they're taking their children and they're doing experiments on them, and then they're putting them in ovens." And somebody coming up and saying, "Yeah, what happens if Wendell Wilkie gets in? What happens? What happens? I mean, have you seen the treaty? I mean, should we have a little more of this or a little less of that? Did you hear they're stuffing Jews in ovens? Did you hear that part?" Then I went on to Don Lemon. And I go over to CNN, and I meet some people that, were very nice, and I meet some other people that would like to take and harpoon me. And yes, that's a fat joke, because I was just listening to Doc and Skip about how fat I looked on TV last night. And
wait, that was a topic of discussion on the morning show on the Morning Blaze?
Yeah, what they didn't realize is that the boss was listening and had a microphone. So, I got in, and I was, honestly, when I left that speech, if it weren't for the people that I met along the way, walking away from that speech, I don't think I would have gone to CNN for sure. I'm not sure if I would be here today. I was so down and so discouraged by what I had seen. All behind the scenes, not from the crowd. And I'm walking away, and I'm thinking, I'm not going to CNN because I'm done. People started walking up and saying just simple things. I could see it in their eyes. They knew what time it was. By the time I got back to our Blaze building there across from Union Station, I was just drained. I mean, I had a hard time. I said to a couple of people, I can't talk to you right now because they're people with giant spiritual radar and hearts, and I knew that we would just burst into tears because we were feeling the same thing. We are so done. And but I decided to go over to CNN and have a real conversation. So I go over to CNN, and Don Lemon, who I think is an honest guy, he's trying to do something different. He's trying to be honest. At least that's the impression I get until I watch his show. But that was the impression that I got. And so I sit in the chair, and I said, Don, I'm not going to talk to you about any of this stuff. I don't want to talk about any of this stuff. And so he starts in, and he's like, so tell me about Donald Trump. And I'm like, don't care. Don't care. What's happening right now is we are having a conversation about people who are claiming they are going to vaporize you and vaporize the entire state of Israel, and we're rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. And so I make a good point about, he says, well, but you got to do something. I said, Don, let me just say this to you. If I'm your neighbor and I'm looking across the fence at you, and every time you see me, I'm saying to you and to my children and to anybody I'm having a barbecue with in the backyard in my house, every time I see you, I look over the fence and I say, kids, we're going to kill him, and we're going to kill his whole family. And then I look at you across the fence and I say, I'm coming for you. When you least expect it, I'm coming, and I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill you, and I'm going to rape your wife, and I'm going to sell her into slavery. I'm coming for you. Do you have a reasonable conversation with me and say, hey, buddy, let's just talk about taking this fence down. Here, let me give you the key to the back porch. Do you have that conversation? Of course not. Now, if my wife and your wife decide they're going to get together and they're going to meet in the front of the house and they want to talk about getting our families together, let's have dinner every Friday night. And while they're having that conversation, because my wife, of course, is telling your wife, oh, my husband doesn't mean that. That's just the way he talks to the family. It's no big deal. It's just the way he talks to the family. He doesn't mean that. And while she's saying that to your wife, I'm looking at you standing behind our wives, and I'm looking at you, and I'm just mouthing the words, I'm going to kill you. I'm coming for you, and I'm going to kill you. Do you listen and fight for the wife? Do you fight for my wife and say, you know what, I think she's the reasonable one? You don't do anything. You don't take the fence down. You don't say, okay, all we're doing is we wanted to get together at the gun range. Our wives were just talking about, hey, let's bury the hatchet and let's start going out on Friday nights. And every Friday night, we're going to go to the gun range and you're going to load his gun. Really? Would you do that in your right mind? Of course not. That's the conversation we're supposed to be having right now. We're supposed to be having the conversation about, do you know that they're raping children as young as 6, as many as 10 times a day? Do you realize they're crucifying people? Crucifying people. That's going on right now, right? So, I'm sorry, we're worried about what Sarah Palin said. We're worried about what Donald Trump said. My gosh, we're grotesque. So that's what I'm feeling inside. And finally, Don Lemon brings up Sarah Palin. I didn't listen to her speech. Yeah, I'm going to say it. I don't care what Sarah Palin says anymore. Sarah Palin has become a clown. I'm embarrassed that I was once for Sarah Palin. Honestly, I'm embarrassed. So, he brings up, what she said about, because he won't call off the dogs or whatever. I didn't listen to the speech. I don't know. I don't think she was calling people dogs. That's a phrase that people like, hey, let's target these districts. It doesn't mean we're going to kill everybody in the district. My God, why do they listen to things like that? But the people who actually say, I'm coming to kill you, we dismiss them. So I said, I don't care, Don. I don't care. And if you watch this video, you can see it in my eyes. You can see how done I am. And I said, I don't care, Don. Why don't we have a real conversation? And then we had probably 2 minutes of the best television we've ever had, an actual exchange with two people who don't agree with each other politically, who found their way to actual principles. I'm excited. I actually have hope for a few minutes. And I actually am standing in the frickin' CNN studios, and I said, you know what? Nobody else has the balls to have that conversation. Yeah, I know. Well, it's a great show, and we're really trying to work bullcrap. Because I get home, and I'm laying in my hotel room, and I have to find CNN because God only knows when's the last time I tried to find CNN. I didn't even know it was still on cable. So I find CNN, which takes me about 25 minutes, and I'm sitting here watching it, and I'm watching the first 30 minutes where they've got people who I don't recognize any of the people who say they're with the Tea Party. And I don't know any of these people. And they're trying to tell me what the GOP really believes. And I'm like, I don't believe any of that stuff. I don't believe any of that stuff. It's more of the same games, more of the same Washington people. And then they come to my interview. And guess what's on the editing room floor? Anything that's real. Anything that actually talks about the truth. Anything, they left everything about, hey, did she say this? Did he say this? How much do you hate that guy? My gosh, that's inflammatory. Boy, oh boy. Left all of that stuff in. I want to have a real conversation with you today. We have to start talking about the things that are real. The things that are real. And we have to start telling you all of the things that are real and having definitive conversations. Why do I say that about Sarah Palin? How could you possibly say that about Sarah Palin? Because I don't know who she is anymore. I don't know what she stands for. I saw a clip of her talking to Donald Trump. What the hell is that? I don't even know who she is anymore. I don't know what she stands for. I don't know. She doesn't know what I stand for. We had a falling out long ago because she listened to people who were lying to her about me. Fine. Don't care. I don't care. Same thing with Donald Trump. You won't believe what happened with his people and my people yesterday. You won't even believe. I'm standing there and I'm thinking, you're having this conversation while people are dying and we're talking about a deal that will vaporize millions of people. Really, we're having this petty conversation. So anyway, should be an interesting show today. I'm glad you're here. More in a second.
Glenn Beck.
So we're off to quite a start here, are we?
You know it's a bad. You know they think it's a bad show when they open up the break. They're just what they're doing is they're opening up the break, going,
Warning. Most of this is highly offensive and things you should not say out loud.
We're trying to filibuster till the commercial. That's kind of our approach right now.
I talked to a good senator, one of the really good senators that didn't speak yesterday. And I talked to him, and he said, you know, Glenn, I really learned a lot. I learned a lot from my first couple of years here in Washington. You know, I used to just say the things that I was thinking and saying the things that, I felt needed to be said. And man, I learned a lot. There's just a lot that you just don't need to say because it only causes more problems. And I said, yeah, I know. I mean, I should have listened to that conversation a little bit more intently yesterday.
Yes. Yes, that would have been helpful. But
you know what it is? I don't understand. Yesterday during the speech, the crowd got it. The crowd was there and they listened. But we had leaders yesterday. Here, let me go here. I think one of the smartest things, and I don't know why Ted Cruz is in the hip pocket of Donald Trump in some ways. I mean, he's like, hey, buddy, why don't you come to the rally? Donald Trump was booed at that rally yesterday when he was walking through the crowd. Booed. Really? Yes, he was. Nobody's talking about that, are they? Because they wanted to make sure that everybody who was at that rally looked like they were insane. They wanted to make sure that everybody who was at that rally looked like, yeah, they'll listen to Donald Trump. He was booed when he walked through that crowd. The smartest thing that I think Ted Cruz did was invite him and say, I will introduce you. Absolutely. Because putting those two back to back, I swear to you, and I mean this sincerely, I think CNN should buy a clown car, and for the presidential debate, they should load up about 80% of them in that clown car, and then introduce a few of the serious people, and then start the little music, and they could come out and they could have, somebody could go on their nose when they get out of the clown car, and they just keep pulling them out, and they're like, look, how many presidential candidate clowns can we get into this little car before the debate? It's nuts. It's nuts. And if you watch that debate and you see Ted Cruz and what he said back to back with Donald Trump, we're at a point of choosing. If America chooses to go with clowns, if America chooses to go with anger, and I know this is quite ironic coming from a very angry man today, but if America chooses to go with anger, we're lost, gang. We are lost. If we don't understand the gravity of what we're dealing with. When I heard last night on CNN and they were talking about, you guys just hate Barack Obama. Do you realize how inconsequential Barack Obama is in my life at this point? Do you realize how inconsequential Barack Obama is to the people in the Middle East who are being raped every night? This isn't about Barack Obama, you egomaniacs. Oh, my gosh. So if you just listen to those two speeches back to back and you tell me which one's president, if I'm president, you're going to get sick of winning. Oh my God! Really?
I thought that was powerful. He really, I think, he's turned me around with that one. I was not a Trump fan until I realized that I would never get sick of winning. Yeah. That's not something that would happen to me. And then when he went into that news story, Pat, I know you had a clip of that you were playing earlier. This is the sort of thing that wins me over. I mean, it's a devastatingly frank discussion, and it's just the guy has got such a handle on the facts of a situation.
Get to it, because we got to move on to real stuff.
It just came out a little while ago.
And
that's what he just said. And this was a very short period of time ago.
Very short period of time.
He doesn't even know when it came out. Can you have at least that one fact?
No.
This happened yesterday or this morning. But this came out before this present time when I'm speaking about it. But after World War II. But in a time that was not that long.
Hang on just a second. I want to put this into perspective here. Okay, as we're talking about what he's saying, I'm watching television and I'm seeing that little boy face down on the coast of Greece. That's what's making me sick. Okay, we're playing politics. Everybody's playing politics when people are literally dying, and we're not paying any attention to that. I will tell you on the fact thing, I would like to defend him a bit, because that's exactly the way I do things. It's like, Abraham Lincoln said something, it was kind of around this, and it kind of was like that. So I'm going to give him
a presidential candidate, however.
Yeah.
However, may I just say this? I said this yesterday after he was speaking, and I have to post the picture. Somebody took a picture of me and my assistant, Michelle, listening to Donald Trump. I had no idea they took this picture, but we got on the plane, and he was like, I got to show you this picture I took of you two. You have to see the look on our faces. We were both like, what the hell is he even talking about? So anyway, I said at some point, and I probably shouldn't have yesterday, you know what? I have always felt that the things that I have said in my career, the things that I have done, the mistakes that I have made, the approach that I have, I can sometimes, like today, be a little hot-headed. I'm just not... I would never be a good president. I would never be a good candidate. I would be out before I even said, you know what, I think I really would like to run for. I'd be out. Until I listen and watch Donald Trump. And then I realize anyone can do this. Anyone. We'll apparently accept anyone. And I mean this. And I'm sorry if you don't like it, but anyone who is for Donald Trump, there is no difference between you and those who supported Barack Obama and would not listen to reason or credentials or anything else. Those who didn't want to look into his past, those who said, well, he said that yesterday to Jeremiah Wright. It doesn't even make any difference. You're no different than those who supported Barack Obama, period. And if that makes me wildly unpopular, I'm so sad.
And the problem is he keeps surging in the polls. I really thought it would be over by now. I thought people would realize what he's all about by now.
I'm telling you.
He just went up to 32% in the CNN poll. 32%.
People want to be bored with winning.
Yeah. Yes, they do.
People don't. Here's the thing. No matter what people who stood with us and we thought they understood the Constitution, we thought they actually believed in these things, those same people who stood with us, they're just as lazy, just as uninformed, and just as angry as those who follow the left. They just want their guy to punish people. They just want their guy in charge. And it's no different. I thought we had learned something, but it is no different than the guy, Johnson, who was a racist, who was a gigantic government progressive. He gave us the Great Society, and all the people on the right said, that's got to stop. And we elected Nixon, who was just as big and probably a worse guy than Johnson. We're about to do the same thing, and I don't want any part of it.
I think don't overgeneralize here. There's, as you said with this audience, we polled this audience. Donald Trump finishes 10th.
No, I'm not. I'm saying those who are waving the flag and supporting. Yesterday, I wrote something. Look, if you don't know by now that you get all of me, the good side of me and the bad side of me, you get all of it. Now, there's nothing to hide here. You can't be as exposed as I am every day and hide, and that means with everybody. You know generally who people are who are in the media this much. You generally know who we are because you can't hide. Last night, I wrote a pretty intense post on Facebook. I was done. And I said, we have got to start talking about the things that are real. You know what the first response that came back was? Donald Trump 2016. Oh, my God. Oh, my gosh. I said, you've just proven everything that I just spent an hour writing. You just proved that to be all true.
It is frustrating. I mean, look from a very basic point, nothing dealing with the huge issues that you're talking about, but things like when Barack Obama was running in 2008, we got calls constantly. Do you believe these Democrats just picking this guy who gets these big crowds? He's nothing but a celebrity out there. He has got nothing behind him. He's got no experience. This man has no experience. He's a joke. Some of those people today are supporting Donald Trump, who is, you could criticize the exact same way, except with more accuracy. It's even more true with Donald Trump.
And here's the thing, Stu. We would say, listen, what are they doing? All they want is they won't listen past hope and change, hope and change, hope and change. What the hell does hope and change mean? Donald Trump's doing exactly the same thing.
Make America great.
It's even more stark.
We're just going to make America great. We're just going to make America great. We're just going to make America great. We're just going to win because we're tired of losing. We're just going to win.
Yeah, how are you going to do that? How are you going to win these battles? I always win these battles. I don't need to tell you. I always win them. Just trust me. I'll get there. I'll win. It's the same stuff he was saying about foreign affairs. We'll just win I'll negotiate with these people, and all these things will get better. I mean, it's the same pitch. Except said less eloquently.
For those people who are listening to Donald Trump and say, I can relate to his anger, I can relate to his sentiment, I don't have a problem with you. I'm talking about those people who are carrying the Trump banner and are fighting like zombies, like Obama bots. You're no different. You're absolutely no different. I want to take a quick break and tell you about Freedom Works. I'm here in Orlando because on Saturday I'm going to give I had a speech plan. I don't know if I'm going to give a speech. I think I might just get down into the audience and just talk to you. I want to hear from you. I want to know. You guys are the grassroots organizers. You're the ones. So how can we help you? Do the grassroots, and I think the answer is yes, do the grassroots understand the time that we're living in right now? This is a time of giants. This is a time that we have to be giants or we will be squashed. So I'm going to be here in Orlando, and you can find out all of the information at the 912summit.com. It's 912summit.com. These are the Tea Party people. These are the 912 people. These are the grassroots organizers for a change in our government. If you really don't like the establishment, if you really want to do something, and may I say, you believe in the Constitution of the United States of America, you believe in a rule of law, not a force of personality or cult of personality, then you need to be there on Saturday. I will be there along with others, and I would sure like to meet you and hear from you. Welcome to the program. My name is Glenn Beck. Should start it this way. Hello, my name is Glenn. I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Glenn.
Yeah, I should probably work that program a little bit today. Or, you know what? It has been 20 years in November. It'll be 20 years of sobriety. I think I'm cured. I think I'm cured.
Yeah, so you could go right back to drinking, right?
I haven't had a drink for 20 years, right?
Yeah,
right. I think I'm cured, right?
Yeah, it sounds like it.
It does. Today it does sound like it, doesn't it?
It sounds like it.
I love this tweet that just came in at World of Stew. I've got a day full of meetings, but I'm seriously thinking of canceling them so I can continue to watch today's adventure live.
This is so funny. It is like a slow motion car wreck.
It really is.
I just got the same thing. I got this in from Jeff Allen. He said, hang on. He said, Glenn, I'm sitting in a parking lot and I can't turn your show off. I've missed my tea time. Oh, and I looked at that. I'm like, oh, mister, it's Thursday and I can go golf. Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah, nice.
It is kind of like watching a car wreck today, but I want to talk to you a little bit about, I think I want to give the speech and I have to apologize to Tea Party Patriots. I rehearsed that speech over and over and over again. I had 10 minutes to speak, and it was 16 minutes. I must have, I don't know what happened. It must have, maybe it was the crowd, or maybe I read it slow. I don't know. But I knew I was going to run over time, but, they gave me the Oscar shuffle where, somebody's doing
they started playing music.
Start playing music, and I finally turned around, because I was halfway through my speech when that happened.
And it was kind of screwing you up.
I'm like, really?
The music was distracting.
I'm talking about, hey, and they're going to vaporize people, and they're playing like, I don't know. I was hoping that it was Survivor and Eye of the Tiger, but it wasn't.
No.
And so I finally just said, and I was serious, and I didn't mean to sound as hostile as I think it came out, but I was like, look, I can either go home right now, and you can play your little music, or you can stop playing the music, and I finish my speech. So you just tell me which way it's going to be. And so they turned the music down, and I finished the speech, but I cut about a third out of the speech as I was going. And I want you to hear the 16 minutes that I had planned. I want you to hear because I don't believe I don't believe I wrote this speech. I believe that I sat down and it took me about literally 15 minutes to write it. And I didn't have a single idea of what I was even going to say. And I had planned writing it all day long, spending the time and really doing my homework and research. And I wrote it, and I was like, okay, I think I'm done. And I think it's important that you hear it. So I'll share that coming up later on in the broadcast. Back in just a minute as our car wreck continues. I had an amazing day in Washington yesterday, and I don't mean that in a good way. An amazing day in Washington. I saw more clowns than I think. I mean, I lived in Florida, right by the clown camp, right by the clown town here in Florida. I saw more clowns in Washington that were wearing little lapel pins that said they were either a senator or a congressman than I've seen at any circus I've ever been. And by the way, the clowns aren't just relegated to the political class. The media is even worse. I am so glad I live in the great state of Texas, where we can actually have real conversations, and we're going to have that right now. Yesterday I was in Washington, D.C. for this event that they had. They're asking people to speak, and I thought we were going to have some intelligent speeches, and I think some of them were. I thought we were going to have an intelligent look at what was really going on, but most times it was not. It was a sideshow. The people that were there were sincere. The people that were there were honest. The people that were there got it. They know. They know. The people who stood for hours in 95-degree heat with 100% humidity, the people who drove across the country, flew across the country. I met so many people who said, I had to be here. I had to stand. They weren't there to listen to some political speeches. They certainly weren't there to boo the president and cheer for, and I'm going to fix things. My gosh. They got it. They understood. But so many people in Washington, I don't think they get it. Even those who are close, God bless them. Pray for them. Pray for them, because they are surrounded by people who are soulless, who are so wrapped up in themselves they can't see the cries and the screams from people who are actually being tortured and killed. This is a game to so many. This is entertainment to people. Nothing is real to anybody. So I'm there and I'm listening to some of these speeches, and thank God the people came and they were rational. Well, I mean, except for the Code Pink people who were there screaming, "No more war, no more war." Really? Tell that to your president. He can stop it. Tell him right now. He's doing exactly the same thing that George Bush did. Exactly. And I'm not for George Bush and what he was doing. Tell your own president. So I'm listening to them, and I am thinking that we are a culture of death. And how do you fix that? You don't fix it. You don't fix it through electing a new president. You don't. We have to fix ourselves first. And there's a couple things that we can do. First of all, I thought Ted Cruz had the best solution yesterday, and nobody's talking about it. His solution in his speech, and Matthew, can you tell me, did you check? Did we get that audio? Can we get the audio from him behind the scenes? He spoke to me one-on-one behind the scenes afterwards, and he explained. This guy's an attorney. I mean, he was a solicitor general for the state of Texas. He's argued in front of the Supreme Court. How many times, Pat? 10, 12? And he knows what he's talking about. And he said, I'm telling you right now, banks will go to jail. If they decide to release that money, they will go to jail because they will be in violation of the law. And he's right. And I think we should get the name of these banks and we should let them know. He said that he was reaching out to some of the legal counsel on some of the big banks and telling them, you better be forewarned. I and others will press for you all going to jail if you start giving money to Iran, because what President Obama is doing is illegal. The Corker Amendment was to say, okay, as long as we understand and we see everything in advance, then we don't have to have a treaty. We won't deal with this as a treaty. But that has been violated. There are all kinds of secret deals that have been happening, and even John Kerry doesn't know some of the secret deals that have happened. And the president is just going to push this through. This is a treaty. And it is required that is 2/3 of the Senate ratify any treaty. This president is just ramming it through by hook or by crook. And I just want you to know that what you can do right now, what you can do about this today, is you can call your congressman, because Congress was starting to wake up. When I arrived the night before and I talked to some people on the phone and via email, they were just starting to get their sea legs, and they're like, you know what? It was like Louis Gohmert said. You know what we should do is we should stand up and say, we're not going. This is a treaty, and we're not going anywhere with this unless it's a treaty. Well, that was kind of loosey-goosey when I first got there. Everybody was kind of like, well, that's a good idea. Today, the House is rising up, and they are rising up against Boehner, and they're rising up against McConnell. There is a power struggle that is going on right now. And there are good people in Congress, and there are good senators. And they know the score. They know what the GOP is doing. And it is time. The GOP is over. It is over. And, I talked to somebody yesterday, and they had just finished meeting with the head of the GOP. And I said, oh, really? He was in your office, huh? Huh. Yeah, it's strange. They don't come to my office anymore. You get anything from the GOP? If they're sending you anything, you write in big marker on those and send it right back to them. And make sure that you use their stamp to send it back. But you write not another dime until Boehner and McConnell are gone. Who are these people that say we're not going to stand up because we can't win? Is that American? That's not America. We don't say, well, we can't win, so we're not even going to try. We wouldn't be here if that's the kind of people that started this country, that came over on the Mayflower. Well, it's really hard. I don't know. The king doesn't want us to do this, so we're... Oh, okay. Yesterday I read the Emma Lazarus poem. I got up and I read the Emma Lazarus poem. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. Send these, listen to this, send these, the tempest tossed, to me, for I hold my light beside its golden door. Can you tell me anybody that's more tempest tossed than those people who are in Syria right now, those Christians who are, last night, more were killed? Guy gets up. ISIS comes into his town. He's 19 years old. 19 years old. They come into town. They call everybody together and they say, your Christianity is over. You will submit with us or you will die. 19 years old. He gets up and he stands in front of everybody and he says, if that's the way it is, then you're going to have to kill me. They shot him. That's what's really going on in the world. And it's grotesque. It's grotesque that we're playing political games, that quite honestly, we're doing a lot of the stuff that we're doing. And I know I'm preaching to the choir. I just want you to know that there is action that can be taken. There are things that can be done. But you have to stop looking to others, and you have to stop looking to ask permission from Washington to do things. We're raising money for the Nazarene Fund. When I told some of the politicians in Washington, I said, I need your help with the State Department, because if they don't let these Christians in, I know some bridges down in Texas that are wide open. And I'm not going to swim across the river. I'm going to take those families in my own hands, and I will walk them across the bridge in the United States. And go ahead, you try to arrest us. Well, these politicians looked at me like, that's not that they will throw you in jail. Good. If you have to suffer jail for doing the righteous thing, so be it. Disobedience to tyrants is obedience to God. But there are things that you can do. And the first thing we have to do is stop buying into all of this crap. First of all, you notice that everybody's talking about the surge in the polls of Donald Trump, but nobody's talking about the surge in the polls. More than doubled his standing, Ben Carson. He's at 19%. Nobody's talking about that, are they? You know why? Because he's not part of a circus. Because he's saying things that nobody really understands. He's saying things in a soft, quiet tone. They want the circus. They want the ratings. We have to start talking about the truth. By the way, if you'd like to come with me on that bridge, I'm going to do it before Christmas. If the State Department doesn't start letting Christians in, I mean, we're transplanting practically all of Somali. All of the Somali camps. We've turned Minneapolis and Minnesota almost into Somalia. And they've done it in the dark of night. They're not talking to anybody. The State Department's just doing it. They'll do that with Muslims, but God forbid we bring any Christians in. They're changing our culture entirely. The Ayatollah Khomeini said that Israel is not going to exist within 25 years. Only 21% of the American people support this Iranian deal. Only 21%. Yet every talking head on television makes it seem like you are in the vast minority if you say we shouldn't do this. Our cops are bad. They're killers, you know. They're killers. They're all racist, you know. That's all you hear. How about the Louisiana police officer that pulled over a couple that was speeding? He pulls them over, and it's Maxine Morgan. She said what everybody always says. I'm sorry, officer. I don't have any idea how fast I was going. I wasn't paying any attention at all. This police officer saw something in her eyes. Is there something going on? She burst into tears and said, I'm sorry. My husband and I are on our way to our daughter's funeral. I wasn't paying attention to the speedometer. So what's this police officer do? This is the real America. This is who we really are. Police officer says, can I just pray for you right now? Can we just pray together? He helped them on their way after they prayed together. Or how about the Chicago cop? You know, with Chicago cops, they all need to die, right? I mean, Chicago cops, you know, if somebody shoots one, what I got to do is I got to get on the phone and I got to move that manhunt someplace else so the bad guys who shot that cop can get away. We're not talking about who's really killing people on the streets of Chicago. Why would we do that? That would imply that we actually want to fix something, that we actually want to get to the root of the problem. No, we can't talk about all the kids that are killing kids in the streets of Chicago. No, we're going to talk about the police officers and how bad they are. We won't share a story about who we really are and who our cops really are. The police officer that was at a Chipotle in Chicago. He goes outside. He sees this homeless black man dumpster diving in the back of the Chipotle. He's in just looking for any food in the dumpster of Chipotle. Of course, that cop did nothing because those cops are bad, you know. Those cops are racist. They hate all black people. So he just closed the dumpster on the guy. He shot him and then closed the dumpster on the guy, and they found the body later. Either that, or he bought the guy food. Either that, or he helped clean him up. Said, "Here, brother, you're hungry. Let me help you." Our problem is we're listening to all the wrong people. And we're no longer seeing who we really are. But it's there. We just need to start looking for it. And start living it. So glad you're here today. By the way, if you would like to join us on the saving of the Syrian Christians, you can do that. Find out all the information at glennbeck.com. It's the Nazarene Fund. I'll have to get an update on how far we are on our fundraising, but we started it, 2 weeks ago? Not even 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago next Saturday, or this coming Saturday. And we're already at the last I saw was yesterday, I think, at $5.1 or $5.2 million. So we're halfway there. And we already have people in Syria preparing these families and vetting these families to get them out of there. I think our first, here in a couple of weeks, the team is going over. I unfortunately won't be going, but the team will be going over, and they will be trying to get these families out and getting them to Hungary. So that'll be amazing. I did an interview yesterday with Kurdistan Television. So amazing, doing a conversation.
You too? Oh my gosh!
Yeah,
thank you.
That's weird.
We did 12.
Right. So it's so weird doing interviews with the Western press, and they're all talking about nonsense. The guy from Kurdistan, he gets up and he's like, "Can I just speak with you for a minute? We are huge fans of yours." And I'm like, "In Kurdistan?"
Wow.
And he's like, huge fan of yours. You're one of the only ones speaking the truth. And we did this deal, and he's practically crying in this interview for his people. And, when will people pay attention? I'm like, look, dude, I gotta talk to CNN because here Donald Trump said something funny. He was saying something crazy yesterday. So, yeah, whatever, with your people who are dying, I'm not really paying attention. I got to get over to CNN because we're Americans, and we really know what's going on.
The Glenn Beck Program.
Yesterday, I didn't get a chance to finish my speech in Washington. I didn't get a chance to actually deliver it the way it was written.
Did you go a little too long, maybe? Is it possible that you just went over ever so slightly?
Here, I just got the official time. I didn't time it. I was told when I walked off stage it was 25 minutes, and I'm like, there's no way it was 25 minutes. There's no way. They said I rehearsed that thing, and it was 16 minutes, and that was 6 minutes over my time, but it was 16 minutes. And I said, there's no way it was 25 minutes, because I edited about a third of it out. And they said, no, Glenn, you were way, way, way over. It was 18 minutes. My entire time from the moment they introduced me to the moment I walked off was 18 minutes. So I was 10 minutes over, and that's, my apologies, because there were a lot of people that wanted to speak. But it was I've never had anybody give me the bum rush before. I've never.
Well, and by that,
before.
They started playing music to let you know that your time's up and we needed you to get off the stage. And that was what, the halfway point of your speech? Ish?
Yeah, well, because
it was
10
about
minutes
halfway.
over, 10 minutes over doesn't sound bad until you realize that it was an 8-minute speech. So
Right.
you were over 100% over your actual...
Yeah, I understand that. And Ted Cruz spoke for about 25. Donald Trump spoke for about 20 minutes. Sarah Palin spoke for about 15 minutes. So I'm sorry that, I'm sorry that I went a few minutes over. I shouldn't have an attitude about this because they asked me to speak for 10 minutes, and I should have spoken for 10 minutes. I just felt that this needed to be said, and so they halfway through played the music, and it was
here's
good.
What happened if you missed that.
It is beyond unreasonable not to take seriously the threat of death by another. When someone says they will wipe the Jew off the face of the earth, you must take them seriously. They mean it. I've been asked to speak, so we can either let me speak or we can turn the music off, or I'll call it a day. Which do you prefer? They turned the music off. Crowd was a little not on their side.
Well, I mean, understandably, I
didn't realize they were. Shalimar seems to be the wrap it up music.
I don't know what it was, but they played it, and it went on for about 2 minutes, and I'm like, "Who the hell has a boombox? What is this music? Am I hearing music?" And then I realized, oh my gosh, they're giving me the Oscar bum rush. Yeah, and honestly, I was only halfway through, and I thought, so where do I go from here? And the only option that I had, I didn't have I'm not going to edit it. I'll edit some, but I'm not going to go from the ending, the middle of it, and then just end.
Yeah.
You're not
going to say the fires of hell are going to come down on us. And thank you for being here. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye, everybody.
I just wasn't going to do that. I had no way out. And so, honestly, my first thought was, close the book, let's go. I was so done yesterday before I even got on the stage that I almost just closed the speech and just said, thank you, and just walked off, which would have let everybody go.
I didn't even say that, though.
No, yeah, I had heard, too, that was James Woolsey there speaking? Somebody was on the stage earlier speaking, and they had the same issue with the music, and the music just came on, and they were in the middle of a point. It was like, all right, we'll finish this later, and just left.
No,
left.
Here's what they did. And God bless them, but they it was 95 degrees out, and they let everybody speak. It was almost every member of Congress. They let everybody speak. It was my understanding when I was invited there would be 4 or 5 of us. There had to be 100 people that were going to speak, and so you just can't do that. And so everybody was up on stage making their point and everything else, and that's fine. That's just not the place I'm going to be because that's just not what I do. I don't do that, and that's okay. That's okay. There's a place for that, and I just don't belong in that place, apparently. But it was really an odd day. Really an odd day. My apologies to the organizers of that event because they have their rules and they have their things that they were doing, and I was an invited guest, and I didn't mean to pee all over your stage. Yesterday, but
and look, they brought you there. But certainly, they had to know.
No, they did not bring me there. They invited me to speak. I paid for my trip there.
I wasn't talking about budgeting. I just meant you're invited to the event. You're there. You're speaking, and you're maybe known for occasionally going a little bit long. But the reason that you were there and maybe went a little bit long is because what you're talking about is crucially important. Right. It wasn't a campaign speech. It wasn't, some flippant thing. You were talking about issues. You hear this sort of goofy music playing in the background as you're talking about every Jew being wiped off the planet. It's a tough vibe. But I think that, what you talked about leaving here before you went up there was, this is not about trying to even win over the Senate. It's not about trying to get publicity. It's about being on record in front of God, trying to stand for the right thing. And, all this petty stuff that you've talked about today and you've covered, and it's all interesting behind the scenes stuff, it all pales in comparison to what you were actually trying to do there. Yeah. And I hope maybe, you kind of talked about this off the air a little bit. I don't know if you mentioned on there. Maybe you can go through this speech a little bit here.
I want to, at the top of the hour, I'm going to share with you what I planned on sharing because I cut about 30% of it out. And I'm gonna share. It's gonna be tight to squeeze it all in, but I'm gonna do my best to squeeze it in and share with you the words that I felt I didn't write. They came out of my fingers, but I didn't write them, and I don't usually deliver speeches written speeches. I usually just speak right from the heart, but there are so many things that are going on right now that I think need to be said with exactness. And this is one of them. So I'll share that. You'll hear the speech that I wanted to give and was hoping to give yesterday. We'll do that at the top of the hour.
It's a lot like Emma Lazarus said in her poem By the Waters of Babylon.
I'll tell you, I was so angry yesterday it drove me to read poetry as well.
Yeah, and that's what I was
they
doing.
gave him the bum rush.
Are you making fun of me because I was reading
you
Emma
were talking
Lazarus?
Emma Lazarus?
Yeah.
No, we would never make fun of you. We're joining you.
No, the reason why, it's not like I have an Emma Lazarus
poets.
book. I don't know why I'm defending this. It's not like I have an Emma Lazarus book. The reason why is because I thought of the line, the tempest tossed, turn the tempest tossed to me.
Right.
Shut up. And we are in those times. And what I was thinking yesterday was the Statue of Liberty is the sign of who we are. It's what the world saw us as people who stood with a mighty woman with a torch. And that torch, its name was Imprisoned Lightning. And it was send all the wretched refuse, send everybody that you have, send them over here because we will take care of them. We will give them a new start. We're not gonna be the nursing home for everybody. We're not gonna be the hospital for everybody. We're gonna get them back on their feet, and they're gonna show the rest of the world what it means to be alive. And as we are not taking in the tempest tossed, as we are letting children be raped 5 and 6 times a day, and we're not doing anything about it. We're turning our eyes away from the Christians who just want a right to practice their religion. That's what the Statue of Liberty, she's a mighty woman with a torch. That is the symbol of the Statue of Liberty. And we are violating, there's no light in that torch anymore. If we are the ones that are going to say, I don't really care. What did Donald Trump say? Because that was funny. If that's who we are, there is no light in that Statue of Liberty anymore. We've lost. And that's why I was reading Emma Lazarus, because I was thinking about what did she say of who we really are. And we have to decide that. We have to choose that light. We have to choose that light. Every generation has to choose it. I just saw that Bobby Jindal came out and said that Donald Trump is a narcissist and an egomaniac.
Well,
now what's going to happen is they're going to chew on that for days. That's just the fact, guys. And if you want, if we can't all agree on that,
oh come on, even the people who want to vote for him know that.
Donald Trump has to know he's a narcissist and an egomaniac.
Yeah. Oh come on.
There's no.
I think he'd admit that.
Yeah, there's no contest on that, but we'll chew on that for days and days and days, and that light in that lamp will grow dimmer and dimmer and dimmer. We have to be the people of light. And there's many meanings behind the light in that Statue of Liberty, but we have to choose the light. And I want to share that message. I mean, I didn't go into the Emma Lazarus poem or the Statue of Liberty really in the speech, except for a couple of lines, but it is all about light, and I'm going to share that at the top of the hour. Our sponsor this half hour. I'd love to have you in Orlando. Join me on Saturday. It is 9/12 on Saturday, and join me and let's talk about what are we going to do politically now. What's going to happen politically? I've been talking to you a lot about spiritually and individualistically, but what are we going to do now as a people? Politically, how do we get the right people in office? We were talking off air about a couple of the politicians, and I said, I don't agree with Ben Carson. I don't think he's ready. He might be. I don't think he's ready. I'd like to talk to him more about the Constitution. Let me put it that way. He's at least a decent human being. He's a good guy, and seeing him going up in his poll numbers. Well, I don't want him to be the president of the United States, per se. I shouldn't say that. Well, he's not my guy. It at least gives me hope that the people of the United States are not dirtbags. Because what you see in Ben Carson is a decent human being. Bobby Jindal went on just now about Donald Trump, and he said he's a narcissistic and an egomaniac. And He is. In fact, what's the rest of the quote, Stu?
We know that only a very weak and small person needs to constantly tell us how strong and powerful he is.
That's true.
It's always been true until the last couple months. I mean, I think even Trump would have admitted this for most of the time that we've known who he was. Like, I mean, that's kind of it was always the gig on Trump.
And it's what makes him a compelling personality. You know what I mean? But he doesn't even have the endearing qualities of Simon Cowell. You know, he doesn't. I mean, Simon Cowell is rooted in something. And I don't think Simon Cowell was a narcissistic egomaniac. He was just a truth teller. He's just the way it is.
Again,
you know
I think he might even admit to being a narcissistic egomaniac at some level. But if he was running for president, we would have a lot of the same criticisms. I don't know what his policies would be, and that would be a different argument. But if he was running for president doing this nonsense, you know, it's entertaining on a reality show. We weren't critical of Donald Trump when he was on The Apprentice. The question is, he wants to run the freaking country. That's the problem.
But is the problem that we've accepted this in reality shows? We've accepted this in people like me. So we've accepted this in people, and so now there's no difference between we want somebody to speak the truth, and that's just the way they are. That's the way they speak it. And so we become this. I mean, I'm so disturbed by people that, not Donald Trump, because I know who he is. I'm so disturbed by people who will look at what he said about Carly Fiorina and still support him. The guy is there. I mean this sincerely. Arrested Development. I believe my son Rafe, who is about to turn 11, is more mature than Donald Trump. Something happened to Donald Trump that stopped him from maturing. He is so unbelievably crass against women. He needs to just continue to inflate his ego. I mean, if you remember right, I think it was in The Art of the Deal, or it's in some book that I read about Donald Trump years and years and years ago. His father said to him, "Son, what is the deal with the Trump name? Why? Why do you feel you need to do this? What has happened?" His father was just as big, if not bigger, than Donald Trump was. His father was a huge real estate guy in Manhattan. And then the Donald, anybody who refers to themselves with "the" at the beginning, the Donald needed to have his name on everything. What happened to him? Sincerely. Wouldn't you like to have some psychoanalysis going on here and say, what happened to this guy's life that turned him into this and caused this Arrested Development? The speech I wanted to give in Washington yesterday, but because of time I had to edit it on the fly as I was speaking, and I want you to hear the words that need to be said, and we do that right now. We live in really confusing times. The world is suffering under the delusion of peace and prosperity. We've been told that the world is safer and the world economy is safe, and that Islamic killers are men of peace. The confusion that we all feel comes from the abandonment of truth, a truth that's been chased out of the public square, our media, our university, and many of our churches. But God's timing is always divine. Know this, if we fail to restore the truth, God will. So let's speak the truth. Let's share God's truth to the powers of the earth. I don't think it's a coincidence that when Benjamin Netanyahu spoke to Congress last year about Iran, the Torah portion that was studied that week in synagogues all over the world that millions of Jews learned was the story of Esther. It was God's message to us. America, like Esther, has a special role, and we can either recognize it and know that we were born for times such as this, and we can stand up and save lives, or we can lose our role and our life. But once again, God's timing is perfect. As we debate what we're going to do with Iran, this week's Torah portion, we're told that the story of the early Israelites, we're told the story where Moses stood on the edge of the promised land and commanded God's people to choose life over death. He warned them, if you choose darkness and death, You will be swept from your promised land. I believe we face the same choice today. Choose life and light or death and darkness. But I actually have somewhat renewed hope that we will choose correctly, because honestly, I feel something is happening in America and around the world. I can't put my finger on it yet, but I know it's good. I know that we're no longer fooled by those who have made good evil and evil good. With Planned Parenthood, we're not fooled by those who call for the killing of our cops. While we get into bed and run guns in Benghazi, to those who now rape children and sell them into slavery, we realize now that we've been silent for far too long, that we had been dulled into some sort of a senseless slumber. And you might feel yourself surrounded by those people today, but there are millions around the world that are waking, that are shaking themselves and their families, that are coming back into line with eternal principles, because there's a hunger for truth, unvarnished and authentic. We accept, even to the point that we're not going to like the truth, and we know it's not going to make us comfortable, but we can no longer deny the truth. We return to eternal principles, to stand with God, and in Iran's case, with his chosen people. And make no mistake, that's what the deal with Iran is really all about. Even though they're not coming for the Jews first, this time evil has quenched its thirst for blood with the extermination of Christians. Just a few years ago, there were 2 million Christians in Syria. It's now down to 400,000. And the world is silent. There's a genocide already underway. But it's of Christians. Make no mistake, it will also kill the Muslims that aren't Muslim enough, the homosexual that is homosexual, the women, the children that are just women. Evil will get around to the Jew, because it always does. Who are we? The world took a vow after the slaughter of innocents in World War II, and we said never again. Well, good God Almighty, never again is now. 2 weeks ago, 30,000 people, 30,000 came to the same streets that gave birth to a movement that ended the evil of segregation. We marched on the same streets that Martin Luther King marched, and the city of Birmingham said it was the largest march in the city since 1963. It was a civil rights march, but it was more. It was a unity march. People from all backgrounds, all different faiths, all different colors joining to take a stand, to stand up for the victims being slaughtered by terrorists supported by Iran, to rescue those children that have received the mark of the Nazarene, the mark of death. Our Statue of Liberty cries out to those people. They are the tired, the poor, the huddled masses, yearning to breathe free. They are the tempest-tossed. But our American government won't take them. We'll transplant entire Somali Muslim communities here, but we stand silently by while Christians are crucified, and even worse, we will fund Iran's goal of vaporizing Israel. In minutes, Iran will be able to accomplish more than Hitler did in a decade. And those in Washington are giving us this false choice. You take this treaty or it's war. This is exactly what the world was told just before the breakout of World War II. And the sane and the rational, the educated, were so desperate to avoid war that they sent Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain of England to meet with Adolf Hitler. And evil wore its mask. It played the game and spoke the words the world was eager to hear. I own the letter that Neville Chamberlain wrote to the Hitler Youth upon his return to England, explaining to the Hitler Youth that their leader, Hitler, wanted peace just as much as everyone else. And on his return, the masses cheered as Chamberlain stepped from his airplane and held up that document and announced, "Peace in our day." Just as it was then, so is it now. A lie. There can be no peace with people who chant for your death, chant for the death of Jews, chant for the death of anyone. Chamberlain's accord only gave evil more uncontested time to build the Nazi weapons of death and genocide. Peace in our day was the lie that Hitler promised the West, and it is the lie the Ayatollahs whisper today. And today, our acceptance of this lie, I don't even know. Is it made out of ignorance, wishful thinking, desperation, loyalty to parties, or is it collusion? We could debate it, but doesn't matter really which it is. What matters is that the world hears anyone say, this is a false premise and it is a lie. The only one that can choose war are those who wish to cover the world with their corrupted ideology that Allah is our God and that Allah demands the death of all those who will not submit. The God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob is the God of spirit over flesh. He's a God of love and life over hatred and death. Today, we must each of us choose the God of life over the false God of death. We must not cower and we must not compromise. I find it beyond unreasonable or beyond irresponsible to not take seriously when somebody says, I'm going to kill you. When somebody says, I'm going to wipe the Jew or the American off the face of the earth, you need to believe them because history shows us time and time again they mean what they say. To choose to ignore is to cast our lot with what will be a global war that will plunge the world into darkness and death, that will wash this world in blood unlike anything mankind has ever seen. So it's not just unreasonable to dismiss or ignore these warnings, it is evil. And to all those who make good evil and evil good, to those who excuse or worse, partner with this evil, they need to know they're going to be remembered as the Neville Chamberlain or worse, the Mussolinis of this age. You will not be remembered well. Yet, those few who choose to stand, and most times mocked, ridiculed, or ignored as they stand against the tide of this insanity, I want you to know you'll be remembered by your children and the world's grandchildren as the righteous men and women of courage. I want the Almighty God, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, I want him to know that I stand with his law, not those that are passed in the chambers of corruption and graft and greed and iniquity in our capitals all across the country and in Washington, D.C. But what's more, I'm no longer going to fight against something. And I ask you to join me to fight for something, to fight for life, to fight for decency, to fight for the women who are devalued, the homosexuals who have a right to live, the Jew that has the right to live. Fight for the children who are crucified and who are raped up to 10 times every single day. Fight for those people. Fight for the light, because the light will conquer the darkness. I pray that my voice somehow or another will get to the prisoners of religious conscience who have been left to rot by us. That somehow or another my voice is heard by the freedom fighters who were abandoned by us when they rose up for what was right in Iran. Somehow that our voice can slip through the bars of the gulags and the torture chambers and the prisons and the rape rooms, to let our brothers and sisters who feel alone, be it in Iran, in Syria, in Tel Aviv, or the capital of Israel, Jerusalem, somehow or another they hear our voices, so those who feel vanquished and abandoned know that they're not forgotten. Let them hear us today say that while there are 34 or 41 senators now who have sold their souls to darkness for party or 30 pieces of silver, whatever it is, there are millions of Americans and more around the world that are calling on the ultimate power in the universe, the Almighty God. And no matter where evil lurks, be it in the councils of power in Washington or Iran or anywhere else in the world, evil needs to be put on notice. The mighty arm of God is rising up, and evil will be defeated. You should, if you're on the wrong side, you should enjoy this season of chaos right now, but know that it is going to be very short-lived because we know how the story ends. Now, God doesn't pick sides. because all of us are God's children, but he does require us to choose sides. Rest assured, one way or another, evil's days are numbered, as are the days of those who rule with fear, terror, death, or backroom deals and corruption. Everybody should be put on notice today. You can play your games. You can count your votes. You can, to those who say that they're going to drive the Jew into the sea, you might think you've won. But understand this. First of all, you haven't seen America for who we really are in over 70 years. And you have no idea who God is. You've poked this bear one too many times. America may be delayed, but God's not going to be delayed. To those in the prisons and the rape rooms, they should know their prayers have been heard. Your tears and cries for help will be answered. He is going to comfort the poor in spirit. He will heal the sick. He will mourn with those who mourn. He will open the doors of the prisons and the rape rooms. And here's the message to America. He's going to do these things with or without us. Which side are you on? Know if you choose the wrong side now, you're going to pay a heavy eternal price. And make no mistake, treaty or none, the nation of Israel is going to stand. No Jew in Europe would have believed in 1944 that God would use that never-ending night to hold true to his promise and restore the nation of Israel in just a few short years after, but that's exactly what he did. His ways are not our ways, and he's going to do the same thing again. In his time and in his way, this era of confusion and error, these days of darkness, they're going to end. Because our God is a God of covenants. But that's a double-edged sword. We as a people must understand God's going to keep all of his promises, not just the ones we like. He has told us clearly he's going to bless those who bless Israel and curse those who curse her. I want you to understand this too shall be fulfilled. Our actions as a nation and as individuals, what we do today will seal our fate. So we have to be very, very clear. We shall serve no king other than God. More in a minute. Sponsor this half hour is Square Trade.
Huh? Excuse me?
Welcome back to the program. Are you there, Stu? Or Pat?
I'm here, Glenn. We're here.
Okay. We're here.
We're listening to your speech, which
no, I just kept hearing pardon. I'm sorry. So that maybe you were asking me for something I didn't know. Maybe I was hearing other voices that nobody else
possible.
Heard.
That's possible. Same tone of voice that you hear in your head a lot of times, or is it that? Is that voice? Is it that?
No,
one?
It's more like this voice. Stu, can you come into my office Friday
and bring a box? So how much of that? Did you edit? You haven't edited anything yet.
I haven't
right?
edited anything, and I still have about 3 minutes to go. So I don't want to lose any words in it. So we're going to wait until the bottom of the break, and I'll finish the rest of it. But no, I didn't edit anything out. That's exactly how I wrote it, word for word.
So I'd say we did about 15 minutes there, probably. Wouldn't you think? It was about 15, and so maybe 18 total. That sounds about right. So, but powerful stuff, and I don't know what you cut out of it. I really, because you're making some powerful points that are not being made by anybody else.
It's really hard to cut as I was going.
And you've got the comparison too. And yesterday on Pat and Stu, we and it was easy because they were back to back. We had Ted Cruz next to Donald Trump, right back to back.
Oh my gosh, it was so.
And to compare the two speeches, those two speeches was unbelievable.
Yeah,
it was like an adult and a nursery school student.
Yeah,
and then to hear yours later on, just accentuated that point even more. Because
I would have loved to. I thought honestly, it was me, Mark Levin, Trump, Cruz, Palin. I thought that's who was going to be speaking. Yeah. And that's who, honestly, I mean, there were a lot of great people. There were a lot of great people that spoke. But it was, it was 95 degrees outside, 100% humidity. That crowd, those were
suffering.
troopers. They were troopers.
Yeah.
Real troopers. And one thing I didn't tell you, I got in at 2:30 in the morning. That morning, I arrived at my hotel at 2:30. And my security said, I said, how's security? And they said, we just want you to know, sir, that there is no security. And I said, what? Yeah, they couldn't afford security, so they just cut the security. So anybody who wasn't like me, Sarah Palin brought her own, Donald Trump brought his own, the senators had the Capitol Police, but there was no security there watching over that crowd. And Code Pink was there, some really nasty people that were there protesting. I mean, it was shocking to me. Sarah Palin was rushed on stage. Somebody actually tried to jump on stage and do something to her. Yeah. It was a crazy, crazy thing. The finish of the speech coming up in a second.
This is the Glenn Beck Program.
The remarks that I wanted to make yesterday at the Capitol and edited so many of them because I was running late, and there were other people that needed to say a few things. But what I really wanted people to hear, and as I said, I beg all those with eyes to see and ears to hear, that I believe this is the last call to return to our roots. We are dangerously close to the end of that hedge of protection. We must choose life, because the hour is later than we think, and the morning will come. And I warn anyone who wishes to stand on the sidelines, anyone who just wants to claim ignorance, anyone who even wants to say, I don't know what to do. I'm helpless. Not to stand is to stand. Not to speak is to speak. There aren't going to be any spectators in this struggle. And God is not going to hold any of us blameless. We're told by the people in Washington that we have to give in on this treaty and just about everything else. We have to give in or the world will abandon us. First of all, I don't think that's true. But if it is true, good. We're supposed to be that shining city on the hill. That's who we are. That's our purpose. We're supposed to be the light in a world of darkness. We're supposed to be the ones that take a stand for morality when no one else will. We're supposed to be the ones who will fight for those who cannot protect themselves. So, while everybody else is freaking out, I say let the world abandon us. Because if that's who they are, America's going to be better off standing alone. There's a really powerful quote from Maimonides. He's the wisdom of the ancients. It's the message that each individual stand. Each individual that stands now is responsible for the entire world. He said, a person should always look to himself as equally balanced between merit and sin, and the world as equally balanced between merit and sin. And if he performs one sin, he tips the balance and that of the entire world to the side of guilt and brings destruction upon himself. On the other hand, if he performs one good deed, he tips the balance and that of the entire world to the side of merit and brings deliverance and salvation to himself and others. I think this is what's meant in Proverbs 10, where it says, a righteous man is the foundation of the world. I wish I could explain this so people could really hear it and understand what I mean. But this is a time of giants. It's time now for a new generation of men and women that the world will look to. Those who are going to move beyond the empty words and broken promises. It is time to stand and act, to bend the arc of history towards truth and justice and love, to tip the balance of the entire world to merit and save it. Bill O'Reilly asked me the other night why are you going? Why are you going to speak in Washington at this rally? This has already been decided. I went to remind people that you don't need to have a vote on the floor of the Senate or in the halls of Congress to change the world. To be the foundation of the universe, all you need is a conscience and the stamina to perform one good deed and then another and then another. While the world hangs in the balance, we have to be good. Too many members of our government lack the courage to choose life, but we, the people, will rise up and choose life for ourselves and life for the planet. To the vulnerable victims of an enriched and emboldened Iran, let the message go forth. We will not abandon you. We resolve now to perform acts of charity and kindness each and every day on a global scale to tip the balance toward merit. If political maneuvers in Washington can't be relied upon to bring salvation and healing to those in need, then our hope belongs exactly where it always should have been in the first place, in the Redeemer of the world. And then acting as he would act, with billions of acts of goodness and kindness performed by you and me and others of good faith. In this country and beyond, more acts of goodness and kindness. This is our commitment. This is the plan of action to choose life for ourselves, to choose life for the victims of Iran in this terrible deal, to choose life for the world during a dark time. You know, we have seen dark times before. The dark time of the Civil War, it's reported that Abraham Lincoln overheard someone say, "I hope the Lord is on the Union side." Abraham Lincoln had a sharp rebuke. He looked at him and said, "I'm not concerned about that at all, because I know the Lord is always on the side of right. It's my constant anxiety, it's my constant prayer that I and this nation should be on the Lord's side." That's the choice we have to make today, to be on the Lord's side, and declare that no matter what a few people in our government might decide, we the people will stand with Israel, because we choose principles over party. We choose love over hate. We choose light over darkness and life over death. We choose that even in our own lives, knowing that it'll be changed forever. We choose that with the understanding of history, that road less traveled is one fraught with difficulties and many times jail time or death. But we choose it with confidence, because the outcome has already been decided. Because our God is just, and our God is a God of mercy, and our God is a God of life. Our God is a God of power and strength. He's a God that speaks the truth. And he's a God that keeps his promises. Thank you for letting me say that to you today. Thank you for being an audience that actually hears. Thank you for being people that understand what time it is. Last night when I got home, I vented online. I shouldn't have. I should have just gone to bed, but I vented. And I vented again this morning on radio, and I already need to apologize to 1,000 people. But I don't think we're all that different. I think that we know what time it is. And we're not frustrated with other people. I walked away from that event yesterday, and I couldn't really speak for quite some time, because all I kept thinking was, what else could I have done? How else could I have made this? How could I have made this more clear? How could I have said this so people would listen? I think that's my sin. I think, to say, that I would have the voice of an angel and I could shake the ground and wake people up. That's not my job. That's his job. My job is to say what I'm supposed to say when I have the opportunity to say it. And if it's one person, if I stand there alone, that's okay. That's what we're supposed to do. So forgive me for being like you, I think, frustrated and not knowing how to get the message out more. But as long as we have each other, as long as we can look to each other and say, brother, I've been there. I know exactly how you're feeling. And this too shall pass. And if we can do what I should have done today and not vent except in my closet of prayer, we'll get through it together. Because our God is a God of miracles. And man, is it going to take one to get us past this. So, I have told you that the only thing that we have yet to repeat of the 1960s are assassinations. And I'm telling you that we are headed for real trouble very soon. And you'll never guess what's on the cover of Inspire magazine. That's Al-Qaeda's magazine that is shipped here to the United States. I hope you're being watched by somebody if you subscribe to Inspire magazine. But on the cover, assassinations.
Yeah, they're talking about killing billionaires.
Yeah, they're saying now go after the economic power. Just go start killing them. We are. Here's a great blessing. Let me switch gears here a bit. Here's a great blessing. We can look at Donald Trump as the clown that he is, and we can say that this is, really bad. But then we can also look at the way God uses things, because everything is used for his purposes. Let me just give you the beginning of Bobby Jindal's remarks. And if Bobby Jindal is actually listened to for more than just what he said about Donald Trump, if you actually listen to him and read this speech, there's a bright spot here. Listen, I'm just going to read the first two paragraphs of his speech he just gave before the National Press Club. Today I'm going to put my own political mission aside, and I'm going to talk about something more important than myself and more important than any single candidate or person. Our country is slipping away right before our very eyes. We're descending down the path to socialism, dependence on government. It's becoming the new American dream. We're unfazed by the selling of body parts as commodities, and we are pathetically weak in international affairs. America is slipping away right in front of us in real time. And yet, this is a moment of great opportunity for America. This is a time when we can make dramatic changes. We can embrace conservative ideals. We can literally turn our country around. And I believe America is ready for it. You can see it in their eyes. You can read it in the polls. America is ready for a politically incorrect conservative revolution. And then he talks about Donald Trump. And he says things like, don't get me wrong, his act is tremendous. It's a sellout show, and I've enjoyed it. I've laughed out loud when he read Lindsey Graham's cell number on TV. I've got a kick out of him giving kids helicopter rides at the Iowa State Fair. But Donald Trump is full of nonsense. I'm going to post this at glennbeck.com, and we should go over this. Let's see if we can get Bobby Jindal on the show. Can we get him on tomorrow, maybe?
We have offered again with a bunch of opportunities and windows he can come on. So hopefully he will be
hopefully he'll come on with us. He's a good friend and a great man, and he's a guy that America should listen to. He's a serious candidate. He's somebody who's serious. These are serious times, and we need to stop with the sideshows and the clowns. We got to stop with people like me. Please, stop with people like me. Can we find some people who have real depth and are serious and start looking for the real solutions. And I'm telling you, you're not going to find them in Washington, D.C. You're just not going to. You got to start finding them inside of yourself and inside of your churches. I have more to say. I want to start there tomorrow. I want to talk to you about your churches and what I want you to do. We need to start moving our churches. And if our churches won't move, then we need to move out of our churches and go find another one. But we need to start being people of action. Enough of learning about what we're supposed to do. Let's start doing what we're supposed to do. I've told you that there is one thing that we have not yet repeated from the 1960s. We've repeated the 1960s, and we repeated the 1930s. If you know any history, only thing we know about the 1930s is the Dust Bowl, and we know the Great Depression, and we know about the soup lines. We don't know about the violence in the streets. We don't study that. It's not politically correct to study that. We don't study the assassination attempts that happened in the 1930s. We don't study the assassination attempts that happened under the Woodrow Wilson administration. It repeats itself about every 20 years. It repeats itself over and over and over and over again. This time we are so lost in our own history that we don't recognize it and we don't see it. And because of September 11th, we don't even know what good is and evil is. We don't know the difference between right and wrong. We are literally discussing today on September 11th. And there was talk earlier this week that they would hold the vote on Iran today. We're so lost. We don't even know where we're going anymore. I would really like to suggest that we have a reset. Next hour, I want to share some thoughts with you that I wrote about 3 o'clock this morning. And I would like to suggest that we're building a nation now that we're going to not be able to get away from, because what happens to a balkanized nation is it splits in two. Instead of from many one, e pluribus unum, we go the other direction, from one many. And we have separated ourselves now on race and on politics. Our kids don't have the advantage of knowing who we used to be. This is who we are to them. This is as good as it gets to them. And all of us are modeling behavior for them that is so unbelievably wrong. And so, next hour I'd like to start with me. I don't need to speak for you. I just like to start with me. And have a conversation that perhaps is too late. But as long as we have tomorrow, I have always believed there is always a chance. It's never too late. Back in just a second. You see that picture of that rainbow that seemed to be coming from the Freedom Tower last night?
I thought that was really cool. I mean, well, you could make that up, but I don't think somebody did, because it's really viral and several people seem to have snapped the shot, but it does seem to emanate right from the Freedom Tower.
Of course, Pat.
Really cool.
Of course. Pot of gold. Those Americans are always talking about their gold.
That's right. Right.
Do we have any idea how many people what's the occupancy of the Freedom Tower? I've not heard that.
The new one? I have not heard. I've not heard. It's bigger a little bit than at least one of the towers was. So it's got to be huge. But I don't even know if it's full. Have you heard if it's...
Wait a minute.
Kind of occupancy there?
Bigger because we put a beam up on top, threw some glass around it, and then a big, huge antenna?
You do have a little issue with the Freedom Tower.
Oh, I have a big issue with the Freedom Tower. Yeah, I have a big issue with
First
the Freedom
of all,
Tower.
it took way longer than it was supposed to.
Oh, yeah.
Secondly, we always thought you should build them back exactly the way they were.
I'm so done with that. I'm beyond that. But
yeah, but so
I mean,
what
if
did
you remember
want?
right, I was also at one time saying give it to Donald Trump, even if he has to put his name in 5-story building, 5-story letters on the top of it.
Yeah,
just let him get
built.
the damn job done.
Right.
Right. So I'm just done with that. I actually because I have changed so much in the last 14 years. I mean, I'm just not the same guy I was 14 years ago. I'm not the same guy I was 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. I just look at that now and just think, I obviously think about the tragedy, and I think about, the loss of life, and I think about that day and what we were like before and what we're like now and all of those things that everybody does. But I also am, I also think about the missed opportunity to humble ourselves. And I was part of it. I mean, honestly, man, what is the song, I put a boot up your ass? It's the American way. What is it? Toby Keith?
The Toby Keith
what
song.
was that? What was that song? I can't remember now.
I don't remember the name of it. I just remember that lyric because you've said it a few times.
Yeah. Yeah, Red, White, and Blue, is that what it is? You know that lyric, though.
Yeah.
And we felt good about it. Every time we heard it, we were like, yeah. I don't feel good about that anymore. I don't. I mean, I feel good about the things that Chris Kyle is about. The reasons why we like the Chris Kyle movie and the mainstream media and the left didn't understand it. He was quiet, and it wasn't about him. It wasn't about revenge. It was about somebody taking a drill to children's heads in the middle of the square and somebody being willing to stand and stop it. And not for the glory or the fame or the money or anything, just a simple man who risked everything to do the right thing.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you could infer that from, we'll put a boot up your ass, it's the American way.
Courtesy of the Red, White, and Blue.
You could.
You could infer all that.
Yeah, you could.
It might be a misconception of what you should be inferring, but it's okay.
There's good news.
There's a place for righteous indignation or righteous anger. Even there is a place for that, and at the time we were angry, but we didn't take enough time. Our leaders didn't take enough time. A leader sometimes says the hard thing, and the hard thing back then would have been, wait a minute. Okay, we're going to get the bad guys, and we're going to get them, and we're going to make them pay for this, and we're going to make sure they don't do it to us or anybody else again. But now let's talk about how we have ghost planed people. We say we don't torture. We say we don't agree with dictators. Yet we ghost plane people to Mubarak's jails. We have them do our dirty work. I mean, how does anybody even know who we are over in the Middle East? I told you yesterday that I did an interview with Kurdistan TV on the mall. This guy came up and he was humble and gracious and had very broken English. And he said, "Mr. Beck, please, can we talk to you?" And everybody said, "No, I'm not doing interviews, I'm not giving interviews." And he said, "But wait, we're from Kurdistan." And I said, "Stop. Yeah, come on over." And we talked. And he really, the root of his question is, where's the America that we thought we knew? Now, he never said that. And I think he wouldn't have said that because he wasn't rude. But that was the root of his question. I think I know who America is. And we've watched you and admired you for a long, long time. We're confused. We're right there with you. We know we live with evil. We live literally side by side. Our people are being slaughtered, and we're always brushed to the side, and that's fine, but we're now in the battle of not only our life, but your life as well, the lives of freedom all over the globe, and you know it, and I know it, but how come America doesn't really know it now? How come there's so few that really know? We are in such trouble. When are you guys going to wake up? That was the root of his question. And you know what? I think this is why I don't like the arrogance of some politicians, and why I quite honestly don't like the arrogance in myself. It is the one thing that I fight with. It's really, really hard to make sure that I don't become arrogant, and far too many times I do. And I've told you for 1,000,000 times, don't ever pray for humility, because he'll give it to you. And I know that because I prayed for it once in the 90s, and he gave it to me, and he gave it to me in spades. That's one he'll answer every single time. And I've told you for years, don't pray for humility. Don't. Humble yourself. Don't ask him to do it, because he'll do it for you. I told you about, 6 weeks or 8 weeks ago, I'm praying for humility. Not for you, not for the country, for me. If we're not humble, we're not going to make it. And yesterday was a really bad example of my arrogance. Really bad example. I stand by everything that I said on yesterday's program except for one thing. I called Sarah Palin a clown. That was unkind. That was name-calling. I stand by, I don't understand her. I stand by, there are some issues there. I stand by her interview with Donald Trump was more than confusing to me. I stand by, maybe I was wrong about her from the get-go. I stand by all of that. But I don't stand by, and I ask for her forgiveness. And I ask for your forgiveness for just throwing out, she's a clown. I was angry. And that's the worst time to be on a national radio program. But maybe perhaps it's part of the humbling process. And when we really truly have been humbled, because that's our problem, we're looking for somebody who's louder, or for somebody who's more arrogant, or somebody who can throw everybody out of the room and just get the damn thing done. We're looking for a strong man, instead of looking to a higher power, and the humble man who will answer to that higher power, knowing that absolutely everything is possible with God. I will tell you, and I mean this sincerely, Pat knows my career trajectory. Anybody who has been with me from the very beginning. I was a washed-up alcoholic in 1999. Couldn't afford my own rent. I had no idea how to do talk radio, and everyone said, you will fail at talk radio. Everyone. They were about to fire me from talk radio in my first job, because in my first 6 months, I went from 8th place and I rocketed to 18th place. And it was a humbling experience. But I just stuck to my principles. I stuck to what I believed was true, but I needed somebody to remind me. Dom Theodore, a guy who works for me now, he was a vice president of programming, and he was not a talk radio guy, and he was just a friend, and he took me out to lunch, and he said, what are you doing? He said, you're doing talk radio because everybody tells you that's the way you need to do talk radio. And when I first heard you, that's not who you were. And now you're just doing what everybody else is doing. Because, Glenn, you're afraid to fail. And what made you so good and so promising a year ago was you weren't afraid to fail. You knew you're going to give it a whirl. And if it didn't work out, you didn't need it that much. You go do something else. Are we there as a people at all Do we look at our country? Do we look at our jobs? Do we look at things and say, you know what? I don't need my house. I'm going to be totally fine. I'm going to be totally fine. I said to my wife just last weekend, we were walking around our house. We need a house that has a security headquarters, unfortunately, at our house. I can't just buy a house that's just on a regular street because of the life I live, security-wise. But I walked around my house and I said to my wife, I said, I'm beginning to hate this. I'm beginning to hate this house. I'm beginning to hate the stuff in it. I want to have an auction and just get rid of all of this stuff and give it all to charity and go help people who are overseas. And I want to live in a small, regular house. How many of us would be fine with America not being the world leader, but it was a country of principles? It was a country that stood for something. But the rest of the world didn't like us and didn't listen to us, and we didn't have a role at the world's table or whatever. I think the world would be worse off without America. I know that to be true, at least in the past. But how many of us are really okay with saying, you know what, Lord, I want to be around people who understand what freedom really is, and freedom really comes from serving you, serving each other, loving each other, helping one another, not having your name up in lights, not being famous, not being rich, not having the biggest house on the street, not having a job that you never have to worry about. Since when did we get to this place to where we think, even me, I spend the money that I have coming in, and I think about this. For the last year, I've thought about this a lot. What are you, stupid? Do you really think you had a voice? You had no voice 15 years ago. 10 years ago, you started to have a voice. 5 years ago, you were on the cover of Time magazine as one of the most influential men in the world. You're not that guy now. What makes you think you're not just going to be a regular Joe 2 years from now? And what's the problem with that? It'll always be this way. No, it won't. Change is constant, and change is good if we know who we are. And I'm not sure we know who we are anymore. That should be our goal, to find out who we are. Back in just a second. Our sponsor this afternoon. Oh, how do we change the world? Well, we start by changing ourselves. I think I want to start there with me right now. We all have bad days. We all have bad moments. We all have moments of frustration and anger. And if you were listening to yesterday's program, yesterday was one of mine. I've always told you that I lead with my mistakes, and this is the most listened to hour of my 3-hour broadcast. This is the most listened to time, so I'm going to lead with it, and I'm not going to bury it anyplace else. I want you to know that yesterday, I stand by all of my comments that I made yesterday, with an exception of one. I called Sarah Palin a clown yesterday, and last night, I was really bothered by it because it was unkind, it was childish, and it was wrong of me to name call. And what I did was did all the things I accuse everybody else of doing. Oh, wow. How great of you, Glenn. That's big of you. What I should have said, and what I did say, it was overshadowed by me being stupid. What I should have said is, I don't know what she believes. I don't know if she is who I thought she was, and I haven't felt that way for some time. I'm confused, but I'm confused by a lot of people. When I saw her interview Donald Trump on her TV show, I was really stunned. And not that she interviewed him. I applaud her for interviewing him, but her opinion of him and that she agreed with him and backs him as hard as she does. I've seen her speak many times about many topics, and I frankly don't understand her anymore. But I'm sure she doesn't understand me, and she doesn't agree with me quite often as well. I can guarantee it. I haven't had a relationship with Sarah Palin for a long, long time, right around the time that Gabby Giffords was shot. And it had nothing to do with that moment, but it was around that time. I just remember that time was a very weird time in our country. And it was around that time that I was in my car, and I called Todd, her husband, and I hadn't talked to her in a while. Something was weird. And he told me, we've been told who our real friends are, Glenn. And I didn't even understand that. I was stunned. I had backed her in every way I knew how. And at that time, I really believed in her. And in fact, I believed that she had the ability to change the world for the better at that time. I really did. And I was stunned. And I reached out a couple of times in a personal way when we were at events, but there was never anything meaningful, and I received the message, and that's fine. I don't know what they were told or by whom they were told, whatever it was. That's fine. I can guess, and I probably am wrong, but I can guess that it was likely the same person that tried to drive a stake through my relationship with Mark Levin and Sean Hannity, and did for several years, because I was told one thing and they were told something else, and we allowed our ego to get in the way, and we didn't talk to each other. Celebrity and fame and television are poison to human beings. Truly poison to human beings. At least it has been with me. And I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. 2 years ago, I realized that we were all going to lose our freedom. If we don't work together, we're all going to lose our freedom. Even if we do work together, we might lose it anyway. And that's when I reached out to Mark and Sean, and the three of us had a very open and honest conversation, and we all realized what had been told to each of us was a lie. And we're all good friends now. And I support them 100%. I don't agree with them on every point. They don't agree with me. But we're doing our level best to save the Republic, and I support them in every single way. And they have been more than kind to me. Sean is a great and gracious man, really, truly, and I mean that. But he and I disagree on Donald Trump, and we have openly discussed our differences. We see him differently. Sean sees, he has a personal relationship with Donald Trump, and I believe that either gives him clearer vision or blinds him. But he openly talks about his personal knowledge of Donald with me on the air and off the air, and why he believes him. I don't have that relationship with Donald Trump, and so that either makes me blind or clear. I don't know which it is. I think I'm clear, but I don't know. The point is, we're never going to agree on everything, and it's unreasonable to think we would. And as a libertarian, I don't want to agree with everyone. It's the push and the pull that actually makes us better and stronger. One of our problems as a nation is we've been told that if we disagree, we have to view the other one as a sellout, a traitor, or worse, and that is a dangerous lie. Sean is smart, he loves the nation, he loves truth, and so do I. Now, I haven't reached out to Sarah Palin for quite some time, and I don't believe there's a repairable relationship there, but that's okay. I've never said anything publicly or privately about anything that I would regret until yesterday. I said she was a clown, and that's wrong, obviously. That, however, is the only thing I regret saying. And I felt it was important to apologize for that part, but I want you to understand that it's okay that we disagree with each other. It's okay that we don't get along with one another. We don't hate each other. We're not trying to stab each other in the back or anything like that. It's never been the case, at least that I know of, and I think she would feel the same way, until I said something stupid yesterday. I don't understand her positions. I don't understand her love for Donald Trump. He's clearly a progressive, not a small government constitutionalist. He was for the bailouts. He's for the idea that the government can just take private land from somebody and give it to somebody else because they'll pay more taxes. And I think that's shameful. There's so many warning signs policy-wise that the size of the list is shocking. But he's also a bully. And he's sexist, and he's cruel. He's an egomaniac and a narcissist. And that's not name-calling. You can see that in action. And quite honestly, it makes Barack Obama at times seem like St. Francis in his humility. He is so thin-skinned that he destroys anyone who crosses him. Now, Sarah Palin holds a unique place with the Tea Party, and I expected more from her, but I'm sure she expects more from me. I told her one time off the air One of the only times that we ever really met in private and had an off-the-record conversation in my office. And I told her, you have great power. And I told her I don't mean to turn you into Spider-Man here, but with that power and your pulpit comes great responsibility. What principles that the Tea Party is founding on is she promoting now with the love of Trump? So now how did I get from disagreement with her to clown? Unrighteous anger. Unrighteous anger. And it came from the Iran rally. I'm at a point that I can't see past the dying children at the hands of ISIS. I truly believe we're at a point of no return with God, that if we don't stand for his principles right now, it's done. I heard her speech after Donald Trump's speech, which was a clown show, and I couldn't believe that this is how all of us are dealing with this issue. And you know, it's wrong with me. Who do I think I am that everyone should see the same way I see things or adopt exactly the same approach? Who do you think you are, Glenn Beck? It was wrong of me because I know she's religious in a very real and tangible way. And I don't understand people who really actually live their faith, how they're missing this one. But who am I to say? My gosh, was I demonstrating how I live my faith yesterday? What a hypocrite I was. Yesterday, what you heard on the air was a very old frustration that I've never voiced, where I feel wrongly accused and judged. But that's none of your business. And it certainly shouldn't have been discussed on the air in the heat of the moment. That's my problem, not hers. That was coupled with total confusion on her love affair with Donald Trump, which was made worse in my head by my lack of ability to grasp what 30% of small government self-proclaimed Tea Party constitutionalists, people who have values, and religious people, what they see in him. Coupled with his speech, and wrongly combining his speech with her speech in my head, coupled with my unwillingness to play the stupid game 1 second longer, because I truly believe we are at a point of choosing, and the consequences are so grave, and I know God will not be mocked. So here's the truth. I don't have a relationship with Sarah Palin, and most likely never will, but that's okay. I still admire her for what she has done for the country. I just disagree with her. She's not losing any sleep over this, I'm sure. We don't see eye to eye on things. Okay. There are some big ticket items that we have to talk about. I do hear her speak sometimes, and I do think I don't know what I saw there before. But that's probably my fault, because I probably projected things onto her that I wanted to believe she stood for. But with all of that said, none of that is bad. That's my opinion. And none of that makes her a clown. Saying what you mean and meaning what you say is a really rough road to walk if you want to have friends in powerful places. Especially if you do not have control of your tongue like I don't. I have always tried to be frank and honest with you, but I fear that I am going to be more frank and honest with you in the coming days and months and years, because we're in trouble. And I would rather be true to myself and my principles, which I don't think I've ever violated with you. But there are things that I have not said to you. But I have to answer to God. And because that's weighing so heavily on my mind, it is honestly making me very frustrated and angry at times at my own faults, and I see the sliver in somebody else's eye over the beam in mine far too often. But I want you to know I'm okay with losing friends. I'm okay with losing popularity over the truth. I said yesterday, my assistant said to me, "So you're not calling Donald Trump?" And I said, "Nope." "Well, I thought you wanted him on the show." And I said, "I do, but really what's going to be accomplished now? Except ratings. It would be a huge ratings get. If I kiss his butt and kiss his ring and then get him on the air, it'll be a huge ratings day. I don't care. I really don't care. And I apologize to the stations, but I don't care. I don't want to be unkind, and I don't want to be inaccurate. I mean, because what's really ironic is I'm the one preaching unity. I just held a rally called Restoring Unity. And then what do? Well, I will tell you this. Just because you want unity doesn't mean that you're not going to turn over the tables. Just because you do want everyone to get along, it doesn't mean that you shut your mouth on things that are wrong. I'm the enabler in the family. I was the clown in the family. Ironic, isn't it? I come from a alcoholic, dysfunctional family where I was the guy who made the joke. I was the guy who was like, hey, everybody, let's just get along. Hey, mom's not drunk. That's not, nothing's going on there. Let's all just get along. Hey, let's have fun. That was me. That's not what I'm doing now. When I say unity, it's not hey, let's just all get along. It's let's stand together on principles. We don't have to agree, but we do have to recognize the time and answer to a higher call. And in some cases, that might mean that we lose an election. But quite honestly, I would much rather lose elections based on what I believe in and stand for. I would rather fight the good fight, be marred with dirt and sweat, be pushed down to the ground and keep getting back up again, and just get close to that finish line but lose. Because I can live with myself because I believe we are in the time that we're going to be judged for everything that we do and say. Another reason why I apologize today. I'd much rather lose and retain my principles than back horses or policies, only because if we do that, maybe we can win. That leaves you with nothing in the end. And we're already headed down that road. So my apology for saying to you yesterday that Sarah Palin is a clown. She's clearly not. But we don't agree on things. And that's okay. Okay, so I think I started something really horrible. First of all, let me apologize to clowns, who are really my real target here. My real target, clowns. You'll notice I compare everybody I don't like to a clown, and that is just a ruse to get you to hate clowns as much as I do. But,
is that what you're getting on your Twitter feed now? Is it this?
I don't know.
Unstoppable attack on clowns has to stop.
Yeah, it has to stop. You know what's really funny?
It's just never ending, isn't it?
It is never ending. It's never ending. I mean, here is Jindal. Jindal gave one of the best speeches yesterday. I mean, just a great speech. But then he says, could you play cut 355 for me real quick?
Yeah, this is pretty funny.
Some things in Rolling Stone about Carly Fiorina that have attracted a great deal of attention. How do you respond to those?
Yeah, I think it's pretty outrageous for him to be attacking anybody's appearance when he looks like he's got a squirrel sitting on his head. I think he should stop attacking other people's appearances.
Okay,
it's hard not to love that.
It's hard not to love that, but isn't that? That's exact. Let's not. I think it's really horrible for him to name call when I'm going to call him a name.
Oh, he didn't really call him a name, though. He just described his hair. And it does look like he's got a squirrel sitting on top of his head.
No, it's more of a fox. He's got like a whole fox sitting on top of his head.
Yeah, I could go there, too. Yeah. But that's funny.
Seriously, how much money would you pay to see how that hair works?
He actually had, a few weeks ago, a woman come up and pull.
No. But he had her touch it to make sure that it was real. Yeah. I'm not saying there's real. I believe it's real. Yeah, I just can't. I don't know. Is it growing from the very bottom of his neck, and is he combing it over and then having it come back?
Yeah, then back up.
I have no idea how that hair works, and just the engineering and physics behind that hair is fascinating.
It's impressive.
It really is. Really is. Yeah. He builds buildings and everything else. Have you seen how he can engineer his hair every day? And does he do that himself? So that's a sincere thing. My wife and I have talked about this for years. Sincerely, that's one of the great secrets of the world that needs to be revealed. Back in a minute. Well, I don't know how Bobby Jindal is sitting at the kids' table on the CNN debate. He needs to get out of that pack. He is really, really good.
He's one of the best, actually.
Yeah,
don't you think he's?
I do too.
He's right there with Ted Cruz, and Rand Paul, and certainly.
Can we go
Scott
over his
Walker.
speech yesterday? Do you have pieces of his speech?
I can get him.
Yeah, I thought it was. I mean, I read it. I didn't hear it, but I man, he's right. He is really right. And he's humble, and he's smart. Joe Biden doesn't like him because I think Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton expect to see an Indian. What is it? Working at the 7-Eleven?
Yes.
So they won't understand. They'll be confused. They'll never see him coming. They'll be like, "You're here because I don't need a coffee or a Slurpee right now. What are you here for, Bobby Jindal?" No, Vice President Biden, that's not all Indians don't work at 7-Elevens.
If you've forgotten or speak.
In Delaware, the largest growth in population is Indian Americans moving from India. You cannot go to a 7-Eleven or a Dunkin' Donuts unless you have a slight Indian accent. I'm not joking.
I'm not joking.
No, he's not joking. No, he's not joking. And I believe that Hillary Clinton has the same audio, does she not? She said the same thing?
Oh.
Did she?
Oh, I think she did. You should look it up. I think she did.
I will.
She made some comment about Indian Americans and how they're all, at convenience stores. And, but they're not racist at all.
Never.
No, I would like to see Bobby Jindal in the presidential debate against Biden and Hillary Clinton. I'd love to see him. I'd love to see him show up in like a little 7-Eleven outfit. Just because that way they'll recognize him as somebody they can talk to. Maybe get a pack of cigarettes from.
Don't miss.
So we have a lot to cover here on this September 11th anniversary. Louis Farrakhan is pushing for a black boycott of Christmas. Who would have thunk a radical Islamist would say we shouldn't celebrate Christmas? I am so afraid of him. And also, we have some behind-the-scenes audio of Ted Cruz behind the scenes of the big event that happened on the mall in Washington a couple of days ago. I want you to hear what he said to me after his speech and what we talked about. Also, some great words from Bobby Jindal that he gave yesterday. Words that America really needs to hear. We do that right now. I'm just watching the video coming out of Europe, this migrant crisis that is happening with 426,000 refugees that are coming out of Syria, and they're walking the highways to Vienna from Austria. They're just going. And this refugee crisis is going to forever change Europe. This is the destabilization that I talked about. Didn't see it coming exactly this way, but here it is. It's going to destabilize Europe, and it is going to change the makeup of Europe dramatically. You can't just bring in 426,000 refugees overnight into a place like Vienna and have it remain Vienna. It's just not going to. Oh my gosh, Glenn Beck, such a racist. What?
I'm not really sure where the racism is in that.
It'll happen. That's.
Of course it will, but it's ridiculous.
So all rail traffic has now been suspended in Austria due to overcrowding. All rail traffic. That's the way it's not like our railroads that nobody uses here. That's a big deal in Europe. They're shutting it down. They don't know what to do with all of these people. Meanwhile, this is the crisis of our time. I'm sorry, but sounds horrible. But you can't. I don't know who the good guys are and the bad guys are when it comes to. I How to tell a Muslim from an Islamist. Because an Islamist believes they can lie to you and tell you they're just a Muslim. They can lie to you and tell you anything. And you know that these ISIS members are going to be hiding inside these radicals are going to be hiding inside these Muslim camps. As much as the rapists and the murderers and the drug dealers are hiding within the midst of the kids that are coming across our own border from South America and from Mexico. We know bad guys are there. Europe knows bad guys are there. So how do you separate the good from the bad? I have no idea. But we're concentrating on the Christians because that's easier to do, quite honestly. It is easier. You know, it's like Germany. If you were fleeing from Germany and you were a German in the 1930s and 1940s and you were fleeing, I got to do my homework on you. I don't know if you're part of the German Boon movement here in America. I don't really know who you are. You're a German Jew? I'm pretty okay with you coming in because you ain't going to last long in Germany. You're the marked one. So, unfortunately, that's how we have to live for a while until we figure out how to settle this, because our governments have lied to us and told us that everybody is good. It's such a small number of Muslims that are bad. That's a lie. It's a lie, especially in places like Syria, an absolute out-and-out lie. And by the way, you can find out that lie and find out how to combat that lie if you want to pick up the new book. It is about Islam, available in bookstores everywhere. Doubt it's ever going to be in a library. Doubt you'll ever find this anywhere where it should be, where a normal scholarly book that tells the truth would be found. You're going to have this one yourself, and we made it as cheap as we could because, honestly, it's up to you to spread the word on this. We would like to see you take this and buy a copy for yourself and then pass it on when you're finished reading it, or buy several copies for your friends, your coworkers, your employees, your school chums, as they say over in Europe, your school chums, or anybody that will listen, and you'll be able to wake up. The truth is finally being told. It is about Islam, available everywhere. Yesterday, or 2 days ago, I was in Washington, D.C., and I spoke to Ted Cruz after he spoke to the crowd at this rally against the Iranian deal. And I thought he was very clear and well-spoken and very determined. He knows the answer to this, and it's an unconventional answer. But here's what he told me behind the scenes. Listen.
Got up this morning and I heard there were only going to be 2,000 people here, and I thought, and that's what that was like, maybe. There's obviously many more than that, and many more thousands watching across. This is quite a collection of voices.
It is an amazing assemblage of pro-Israel groups, of national security groups, of Tea Party groups, of just Americans who want to protect us. I mean, this should be an issue, and it is an issue that cuts across party lines, it cuts across ethnic lines, it cuts across racial lines.
Anything that could get me and Donald Trump to speak at the same place is...
Well, but you know, we all share in common that we breathe and drink water, and we don't want our children murdered by homicidal jihadists who have pledged to do so.
So the press and the White House has said that this is a pro-war rally. What is the alternative besides war? I think war is the worst option that we have.
No doubt, but the Obama-Clinton foreign policy begins from the premise that the way you avoid war is through appeasement. And so their approach has been weakness and appeasement to every enemy of America, whether it's Putin in Russia, whether it's Castro in Cuba, or whether it's Khamenei in Iran. I think they're exactly wrong. I think it increases the chances of war. I think we are repeating Munich in 1938. But, you know, anyone who wants to protect our nation, the worst thing to do if you want to avoid war is giving $100 billion to a theocratic, homicidal lunatic who pledges to kill us. I'm reminded, Glenn, of an editorial cartoon that I think actually captures this whole issue beautifully. It shows the Ayatollah Khamenei saying, "Death to every American." And then it has John Kerry saying, "Can we meet you halfway?" There is no middle ground with a theocratic zealot whose only object is to murder you.
I just talked to some Kurds just a few minutes ago, and they said, where are we? Where are we? Why won't this administration, why won't Congress help us?
It is utterly indefensible. When it comes to defeating ISIS, we need a commander-in-chief who declares the object, we will destroy ISIS altogether. We need to use overwhelming air power. You know, back in the first Persian Gulf War, we had about 1,100 airstrikes a day. Right now, today, we have between 15 and 30 airstrikes a day. It's basically photo op foreign policy, a bomb here, a missile there. It's why it's ineffective. But third, what you just noted, the Kurds are our boots on the ground. They're fighting ISIS. They're actually fighting the Iranian Shia at the same time.
Right.
They are the Peshmerga, their fighting soldiers, are longtime American allies. We should be arming the Kurds, but the Obama administration, for political reasons, doesn't want to do so. It makes no sense whatsoever, and we need a commander-in-chief that actually defends our national security interests instead of trying to earn favor in the leftist faculty lounges at universities across the country.
Does this treaty force us to defend Iran if Israel goes to try to strike?
So there is a provision of this agreement that says the signatories will defend the Iranian nuclear facilities against efforts of sabotage. And the only person that would sabotage those are Israel. So the signatories are signing a commitment that they will effectively stand with Iran over Israel. It is striking. And 42 Democrats apparently are fine with that. Now, Glenn, one thing that I mentioned out there that I think is very important for people to know. There is a way to stop this deal. And two people have the ability to do so, Speaker Boehner and Leader McConnell. If they simply stood up and announced, we're going to follow federal law under the Corker-Cardin Congressional Review Act, the review clock doesn't start until the full deal is submitted to Congress. Obama hasn't submitted the full deal. Correct. He left out the two side agreements. Under Corker-Cardin, until the review clock expires, it is illegal for Obama to lift sanctions.
So when has anything illegal stopped either the people in the House, the Senate, or the White House?
You are exactly right. So let's play the game theory forward. Here's what I think should happen. First, McConnell and Boehner should announce under Corker-Cardin the clock hasn't started because he hasn't submitted the deal, so it is illegal for him to lift sanctions. Number two, I think Republican leadership in the Senate should bring this deal up as a treaty and vote it down as a treaty. It will demonstrate overwhelming opposition. It will not get anywhere near the two-thirds it needs to be ratified. But number three, you're right. If we look at the last 6.5 years, we can anticipate that President Obama will ignore federal law and say, I'm lifting sanctions anyway. It's why what I said on that stage, I believe, was a very important message. It was directed at the CEOs and the boards of directors and the general counsels of every bank, of every financial institution that is holding the billions of dollars. And it is that even if Obama ignores federal law, that does not immunize you from civil and criminal liability. And if you violate Corker-Cardin and the Iran sanctions legislation, you will be sued by private actors for billions of dollars, and you will be liable because President Obama can't give you a get-out-of-jail-free card for ignoring federal law. But number two, when there is a subsequent president to any bank that willfully violates federal law and sends billions of dollars to a terrorist Ayatollah, that bank faces criminal prosecution as well. And you know how you stop this? Is all the banks say, you know what? We're not going out on this limb with Obama because we don't lose our livelihoods and our freedom. Do they have the courage
to do that after they've accepted all of the bailouts?
Well, I can tell you, I have advised major CEOs in litigation, and when they look at the law, their general counsel and their outside counsel will tell them, whatever Obama says, this law remains on the books, and we can be sued under it and pay billions of dollars.
How do the American people get that word out? How do they help? Just spread that word?
Spread the word. We're trying to do it right now. I'll tell you, there are few things more potent than the blaze for getting the word out.
Yeah, well, we'll get it out. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. God bless you.
God bless you.
Really amazing. When he had said that solution, I think that's a real solution. That's fighting fire with flamethrowers. And I think really, really good. By the way, 2 days ago, I had that conversation with him, and we were standing at the Capitol building, and what you heard in the background were the cheers and the voices that were speaking. And I saw the conviction in him, and this guy is a guy who has argued, I think, 10 or 11 cases in front of the Supreme Court. He's the He was the Solicitor General of Texas, so he knows what he's talking about when he talks about the law. This is not some attorney. This is a guy who argues in front of the Supreme Court, so he knows exactly what he's saying. One point when we were talking about things at 2 days ago, the House was deciding, well, what are we going to do? I mean, Mitch McConnell is really scary, and John Boehner doesn't want to do anything either. I don't know what we should do. Today, it is September 11th, the 14th anniversary of Islamists coming through and coming true with their promise. Osama bin Laden said he would kill people in America, and he would start a jihadist war, a religious war against America. He said that in the 90s. I spoke about it in the 90s. I said that there would be blood and bodies and buildings in the streets of New York by the end of the decade, the following decade. And it was 3 years later that Osama bin Laden hit the World Trade Center. These guys mean what they say and say what they mean. And today, I think, again, in tender mercies, God is showing us, just like that petri dish of Planned Parenthood, just like Black Lives Matter, and then they stand behind a cop and blow his head off. He is showing us these tender mercies. He is saying, look how clear this is. Look how easy this is. Really, it's a coincidence that this is being brought up the week of September 11th, and they are voting on it in the House of Representatives right now. That on the day that we were hit by Islamists and said we would never forget, and that we would get to the bad guys, and that we would recognize truth, really, today is the day they're voting on whether to go with Iran or with sanity. It's going to pass in the House. The rejection of this deal is going to pass in the House. The momentum is on your side and is on God's side, quite honestly. And I just can't get over how clear God is allowing everything to be. Back in just a second, our sponsor. And it's in Tampa. I don't know anything about this church other than I was asked to speak there, and we started doing our homework on it, and our guys are like, yeah, it's a great church. And Pastor Dumas, he has a Facebook page, and I just want to read to you what this guy, you want to talk about a rockin' guy, listen to this. So, some were shaken when I led the Crossing, which is his church, into the biblical foundations and the principles of tithing. Some were shaken when we started recognizing women and their place in the ministry. Some were shaken when I led our church to support 2 women coming out in the gay lifestyle. Maybe we shouldn't hate them. Some people were shaken when I taught that wives should submit to their husband in reverence to Christ. Some were shaken when I invited Seer Rogers to teach at the Crossing. Some were shaken when I said, hey, maybe there's such a thing as prophecy. Some were shaken when we publicly announced our intention to pray for our congregation to actually receive the baptism of the Holy Spirit. Now people are shaken that I've asked Glenn Beck to come and share at the Crossing about our nation and urge us to do something about it. Listen to this. What pastor says this? Listen to this. This is classic in Christian circles. Millions are literally losing their lives around the world to radical Islam. We've just signed our national fate in a treaty with Iran. Our government is in moral and financial freefall, and we're self-righteous. We remain smug and unwilling to see or to move or to listen to any voice. To boot, we're self-righteous enough to hurl accusations, to generate false claims, and cast insults at churches, institutions, and leaders who truly love people enough to risk offending some controversy. Glenn Beck has established a fund to help rescue Syrian refugees being butchered by ISIS. Show up Sunday ready to give greatly to the House so we can aptly support. Decide where you stand. We're not shaken. Together, we are crossing. See you Sunday. Wow, do I love this guy. Wow. Wow, I can't wait to speak at that church. That's on Sunday. Now, Bobby Jindal spoke yesterday at the National Press Club. Pat, you want to take us through some of the highlights of it?
Yeah, it's interesting because we haven't heard a lot of we haven't heard anybody really speak out against Trump, and I think everybody's afraid to because he's up to 32% of the polls now, and everybody's. I guess Rand Paul has a little bit,
yeah.
But if you do speak out about him, and we've mentioned the fact that. We don't think he's a conservative, and he never has been in the past. Why is he all of a sudden now? And we get bludgeoned to death. We're the dumbest people on the earth for doing it. So these politicians certainly don't want to step out. But yesterday, Bobby Jindal did.
I want to start by saying I like the idea of Donald Trump. I like the idea of an outsider. I like the idea of somebody willing to say the things you're not supposed to say. I like the idea of somebody going after the D.C. political class. The reality is they are full of foolishness and nonsense. Donald Trump's diagnosis is exactly right. The political class is the problem. The problem is Donald Trump's prescription is exactly wrong. His diagnosis on the political class is right. His prescription is wrong. His prescription is that he is the solution. Donald Trump's not the solution. The problem is that Donald Trump himself is full of foolishness and nonsense as well. Now, look, I'll start by saying I like the idea of Donald Trump, and I like the show. I like the Donald Trump act and show. It's a lot of fun. It's entertainment. I laughed when he went on live TV and gave out Lindsey Graham's cell phone number. I thought it was pretty entertaining when he said that audiences were falling asleep at Jeb Bush's rallies. I thought it was great when he gave helicopter rides to kids at the Iowa State Fair. It's been a lot of fun. But here's the problem. Donald Trump is not a serious candidate. He's a narcissist. He's an egomaniac. The only thing he believes in is himself. The reality is that I want to say what everybody is thinking about Donald Trump, but afraid to say.
I mean,
who says that?
Yes, nobody so far.
No,
nobody but Bobby Jindal. But Bobby Jindal, I think he's starting to realize.
Got to get some fire somewhere.
Yeah, it's time. I mean, this guy's sucking all the air. And has it been fun? Yes, we all sat back and we've laughed and had a great time. But now it's time for the country to be serious and elect a candidate.
I talked to a presidential candidate who shall remain unnamed. It wasn't Ted Cruz. I haven't talked to Ted Cruz about Donald Trump, but I'm confused by what he's doing. He's not saying he's great, but he's not saying he's bad. And I think he's just drafting behind him, knowing that he's going to collapse, and he could pull out and say, "Hey, oh my gosh, look, I'm here." I think that's what he's doing, but I have no idea. But I did talk to somebody else who told me behind the scenes, every political advisor is saying, don't say anything bad about Donald Trump. Don't say anything bad about Donald Trump. And he said his own advisors are telling him that, and he's like, watch the next debate. Watch the next debate. And I said, I hope you mean that, and I hope you don't listen to the political advisors, because this individual happens to. I mean, we've known each other for a while, and we've watched candidates go and burn down because they listen to those political advisors every time.
Yes,
they go to Washington, they listen to those political advisors, and they burn to the ground.
And
he said, no, it's insanity, and he said everybody is afraid of him. And so nobody wants to say anything. So, wow. And one thing I do know about Ted Cruz is he's not afraid of him. He's not afraid of him, and there's something up his sleeve. I don't know what it is, but there's something up his sleeve.
That's what I'm hoping. Because
he's too smart.
We've talked about it before.
Way too smart.
We don't understand it, but and it's got to be beyond his advisor saying just don't say anything bad about him, because he's actually saying good things about him. So I think it's...
What has he said good about him? Because I haven't heard him say, other than, sharing the stage with him. That's not bad. I mean, I think that was really smart of Ted Cruz. Hey, Don, tell you what, I'm going to speak. Now, I'm kind of a bad speaker. I only was a world champion debate person.
It was really right.
And I've argued, 10 or 12 cases in front of the Supreme Court. But I'm not that good of a speaker. I'm going to speak, and then I'm going to introduce you, and you can do your thing. I think that's brilliant.
That was great because
absolutely brilliant.
There was no better indication of one being presidential and one being
one being
not so much.
Yeah.
Not so much.
Yeah.
And then we also have the fact that Louis Farrakhan is apparently going to boycott Christmas.
Oh my gosh!
He's advising all blacks to boycott Christmas this year and spend not one penny.
Oh man!
Yeah.
Can I tell you something? If there's one thing I know about the black community, do they hate Jesus? Oh man, they hate Jesus. They hate Jesus. They hate his birthday. They hate Jesus.
We just saw that at the black churches that we were participating in Birmingham.
Oh my gosh, they hate Jesus.
Oh wow, they want nothing to do with him.
Yeah, they want nothing to do with him. I'm telling you, you can get them out of their church real fast.
Here's Farrakhan's big strategy.
Today, according to what I have read, we have in the neighborhood of $1.1 to $1.5 trillion of consumer power, which makes black people like a carcass where all the vultures gather to suck the life out of us.
Isn't that interesting, though, too? He's talking about their spending power. Where did that come from if you're so oppressed and discriminated against? Where are you getting all that money?
He said he's a caucus?
Caucus.
Okay.
Yes, a caucus. Yes.
So in the or else for us, you're either going to treat us right, or we're going to withdraw from you our economic support. We're going to start right at the Million Man March anniversary. We intend to boycott Christmas, but not Jesus. We think that
wait, hold on just a second. Wait a minute, hang on just a second. I just want to make sure because I'm trying to get my spiritual feasting done here from this Islamist on because he believes Jesus was a prophet, not the Son of God, but a prophet, and he does believe that Jesus is going to is going to come back. For the second coming, but only as one that will testify to Allah and then behead all the Christians that won't convert to Islam. So he does believe in Jesus. I want to make that very clear. And in fact, I do make that very clear in the book. It is about Islam because he believes deeply in Jesus. It's just not the Jesus you believe in. So he's saying here he doesn't want to boycott Jesus.
Right. Just Christmas.
Just Christmas.
Advantage of us and our consumer dollars by materializing the respect and honor of Jesus and making it a bonanza for white business. So on Black Friday, we won't be there.
And in fact, last year, it started, and Black Friday sales were down. Folks tried to say that was because of online purchasing, things along those lines. But there were a number of African Americans who chose not to spend dollars on the Friday after Thanksgiving.
Pat, I will tell you that that's a point that I haven't heard very many places, that it was Louis Farrakhan's people.
I haven't heard that.
It wasn't the internet.
Until now.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I hadn't really thought of the gravity of Louis Farrakhan's people.
It was his huge boycott.
And how much he loves Jesus too.
Oh yeah. Oh, he wants to honor Jesus.
Well, you have to honor Jesus. Because Jesus is coming to behead you if you don't honor him. And I'm just quoting the Hadith and all the things that Louis Farrakhan believes. So, I would honor him too if Jesus is coming with, a big butcher knife. I probably would honor him too, Louis.
We choose not to spend dollars on Black Friday Black Saturday, Black Sunday, Black Monday. We are not going to spend our money for the rest of that year with those companies that we have traditionally spent our money on.
I think it's pretty interesting because he got a little bit of flack for saying that we're going to kill those people who kill us. And he was looking for an army of 10,000 black men to go out and kill white people. And so he got a little bit of pushback from that. And I never said kill all white people. I'm just talking about killing some white people.
Just some.
Right.
So we saw him for the radical extremist he is, and now he's just switching gears and gearing down a tad to a boycott of Christmas.
A boycott because he's one with Jesus.
Yes, because he's one with He wants to respect him.
He wants to respect him.
And for the prophet he was.
For that. Yes. The prophet with the gigantic blade that he's going to whip out. You know why he never wore pants, Pat, right? Jesus never wore pants. You know why?
Why?
He had swords underneath that thing that he wore, the cloak that he wore.
Right.
Huge swords that he had to keep hidden. Yeah, when he had that robe.
No idea. I had no idea.
Yeah. That's why when he went to the cross, they only had him, in the loincloth thing. Because they didn't want to have him cloak around him because you got to get the swords off of Jesus because he's going to behead people like nobody's business when he comes back. Merry Christmas, everybody. Just planning for the show next week, and next week is the next presidential debate. I think this thing is going to shake up some more things.
I hope so.
Is Carly at the big kids table this time, right?
Yeah, Fiorina is definitely in the big kids table.
So is John Kasich.
Yeah, Kasich is still there.
I'm glad. I mean, he needs to be there.
Yeah, he needs exposure, doesn't he? I don't know how it's possible.
Is there anybody? Do you know anybody? And I include John Kasich's family, that is excited about him being president of the United States.
There is a step aunt who is excited.
Really?
And she's considering voting for him. She hasn't yet committed.
Right.
Chris Christie's still there too. Amazing.
God, nobody talks about Christie. Nobody. No. It's interesting.
Well, it's amazing. Trump has just sucked all the oxygen out of the room.
Yeah.
Somebody wrote on Facebook last night. It was great. They said I was standing there and I listened to Trump and I listened to some of these speeches and I almost left. He said I was so discouraged. I almost left, and I watched what was happening behind the scenes. On how the media wasn't even listening. They just weren't even listening. And he said, I was so disgusted. You should read the post, and it's in the comment sections on the Facebook post where I said, hey, had a bad day yesterday. Read the comments on that, because there's some really interesting people that had some interesting things. Things are changing. And I think next week with the CNN debate, things may change even more. See you next week.
You're listening to the Glenn Beck Program.